we're not even. Landfall hasn't even happened yet. This is already one of the wildest hurricane coverages we've ever done here. The water is really starting to come up now, though, so it's starting to feel more like a hurricane stream, I think. This water's risen quite a bit in the past week. Something else that maybe start worrying about down here, though, now with that storm surge. Overall, next week hurricanes. There's a little discrepancy in tracking. One of the hardest hit places seems to be Fort Myers as far as we know so far. Roofs are really blown off the walls. People are now seeking alternative shelter. This is mostly happening on Orangewood Avenue. So it's a really unfortunate situation where a lot of these things with the hurricanes itself. Water is starting to rise here as well as you can see it's starting to overtake here.
Another one. This one looks like it could be another potentially serious situation where we have a tornado coming up towards places near Bluefield. We've got the Southern Fruit Groves Airport in the path as well. This is happening to the south and to the west of Port St. Lucie. And then we also have another area of rotation and a tornado warning that we're keeping an eye on south and west of Westlake, moving up towards the J.W. Corbett Wildlife Management Area. And then we've got another tornado warning that we're watching well off to the west of Delray Beach in the water conservation area. This is moving up towards Wellington. You guys are under a tornado warning as well in Martin County, Florida. We do have that tornado warning in Orlando as well, or southeastern portions of Orlando are under a tornado warning until 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Currently, no major signs of an ongoing tornado from what we can tell. This is a precautionary warning, and rightfully so. We've seen how quickly today certain storms have been able to produce tornadoes. This one's no different, okay? So let's take it seriously. Let's respect it and get into our safe spots. Marco Island Police Department is reporting, or they're sending out this PSA. As local weather conditions deteriorate, should you experience an emergency, call 911. A curfew is in place beginning at 4 p.m. Stay off the roads this evening as storm surge is expected to be 5 to 8 feet in the Marco Island area. Yeah, we're starting to... Yeah, lots of places along southwestern Florida near Naples are starting to report like halfway into minor flooding and approaching moderate flooding. Yeah, the highest point in Marco Island is not much more than 8 feet. So that's why that they've got that curfew in place. It's going to be a dangerous place if the water actually rises that much. Go ahead, Andy.
Hi, Ryan. A very large debris ball on this storm that is due east of Okeechobee here, the one that is halfway between Okeechobee and Port St. Lucie. So a large tornado there that is likely eating up quite a few trees. That is going to head north and intersect the county highway or state highway road 70 there. So state highway 70, county highway 70, that east-west road looks like the path will be in the path of this tornado that is doing quite a bit of damage, probably to mostly trees that we can see on the radar.
Thank you so much, meteorologist Andy Hill. Definitely a tornado producing or causing damage here, as we can see the debris signature on the correlation coefficient. We talked about Bluefield. Hopefully this is not coming from Bluefield. Bluefield's a tiny little area here north of Marcy. But if this continues to go on its same trajectory, it'll cross Okeechobee Road here within the next couple of minutes to the west of the St. Lucie County Fairgrounds. So y'all take shelter if you're in this area. I don't know how I don't know if Bluefield even has a population. Hey, how many people live in Bluefield, Florida?
Ryan, Bluefield, Florida is pretty small, with an estimated population of less than 100 people. It's a quiet spot compared to the bustling cities you usually cover.
All right, what about the St. Lucie County Fairgrounds? Do you know anything about that?
The St. Lucie County Fairgrounds is a hub for community events in Fort Pierce, Florida. It hosts the annual St. Lucie County Fair and offers facilities for expositions, concerts, and other gatherings throughout the year. A real local hotspot.
All right, so Highway 70 between the fairgrounds and Okeechobee, pretty rural area, right?
Yes, Ryan. Highway 70 between Fort Pierce and Okeechobee is largely rural. You'll find open landscapes, agricultural fields, and pockets of wildlife. It's a scenic drive, but watch out for those sudden downpours Andy's always track.
Go ahead, Elijah. Is that one real or something causing
Charlotte, Irma, Ian. There were times, I have no doubt, that every one of us thought that was going to be our storm, and it moved, it turned, it what it did. And we had a near miss. Many times those misses were devastation further in. This is our year. This storm is not going to miss the Bay Area. This storm may weaken just a bit more to minimize the threat. But we've just been talking, Greg, Allie, Jason, and myself, we're looking at real-time nowcasting. The models, this is something I'll say over and over again. Throw the models out the window because we're now 4 or 5 hours away from it. So the models are meaningless at this point. We literally, and no lie, last storm, Jason laughed at me because I had a big TV over there, and we had the way that the storm was moving, and I had a piece of paper, and I was lining up the piece of paper in the track to see where it was going. So with all the technology, with everything we have, nowcasting is still just looking at
with everything we have, nowcasting is still just looking at what you have. And unfortunately, what we have right now is a hurricane that is pretty much west of Northport. And it's just not showing enough of a sign to turn to the northeast to miss the Bay Area. And for that matter, more than likely to even miss the Bay. It's, you never say never, right? But there's your eye right there. And what we've been saying, look, in terms of winds, it's not going to make much of a difference. The only exception, and we've been saying this for 5 days now, say it again, there's going to be a 5 to 7 mile area that's going to have extreme winds. And the fact that the storm it's incredibly ragged right now. And if you were watching yesterday, we were talking about how you could draw a line through the eye. The eye is right here. Remember that storm a couple of days ago that had what was looking to be like a perfect eye in a sense? Well, now that's the northern eye wall. I was saying if you went outside at night as this storm passed and you were in the southern eye wall, you'd see stars. It might still be very windy, but you'd see stars. So we literally have a hurricane that's split in half. And you look at the wobbles and, you hope that maybe one is moving one way or maybe another. But at the end of the day, there is just no possible way that this is going to miss the Bay Area. So we've prepared the best that we can. I know that some folks are watching us on our streaming app right now from other states. Okay, I'm getting a picture, really, really bad rain in Clearwater. Let's go back to this. This is what we're talking about here, guys, all right? So you have this right here, okay? There's your eye. Almost all of the weather, almost all of the rough weather is on the north side of that eye. That's the eye of the eye wall, okay? And Jason's been talking a lot about that. This is going to lead to some pretty significant freshwater flooding, nothing to do with the surge, okay? But right now, the most important question is, will the surge rise higher in the Bay? And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think that answer is yes. Now, we're not ready to sit here and say that it's going to be a 10 to 15 foot surge like the worst case scenario, because honestly, the worst case scenario, the way that the Hurricane Center and the way that the models were looking at it, was a much stronger storm than it is right now. What was it, Allie, down to 125? Is that what it was? Yeah, down to 125. So it's weakening, and it conceivably at landfall could be very close to a Cat 2, minimum Cat 3 hurricane. So that's good, right? So less wind, less severe weather. The rain is not going to change. But as we've been saying now for days, the surge after Helene, the last thing that we need is additional surge. We had nearly 8 feet of water, 7.2 feet I think it was in the Bay with Helene. It appears pretty likely if this gets to the mouth of the Bay, the southern part of the Bay will see higher surge. There's still and this is crazy. Greg and I were just talking about this. The very accurate model that predicted Helene almost perfectly, right? The last we checked had about a 5 or 6 foot surge for the southern Bay and 0 surge for the northern Bay up around Oldsmar. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but what I'm telling you is it is that close of a call. When you have, because remember, wherever that eye crosses, wherever it crosses, north offshore flow. You can see it. Everything's pushing away. But what happens south, everything pushes in. So regardless of where landfall occurs, I mean, there's that southwest flow, and it just continues to push water. And the fact that it might be weakening isn't going to have a huge impact on surge because it's just a big area pushing the water. It isn't the wind that's actually moving the water. It's the actual storm forcing it. The description that Greg likes to use is imagine a bathtub, and you're on one side of the bathtub and you put a wave, and that wave goes and hits the other side of the bathtub and lifts up. So that's the problem with the bay. As that water goes in, it reaches the end of the bay and it pushes up and creates additional surge. So ultimately, there's the offshore flow wherever that eye will occur, and then just at and south of the eye, the onshore flow occurs. And I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I don't think I've ever seen a track that is so razor thin close to having such a massive impact on one area versus the other. And I talked about this a little while ago. I mean, there's estimates that if this storm goes into the bay as a Cat 3 or 4, you could have $175 billion worth of damage. If it goes into Sarasota, you've got about $100 billion. So it is obvious because there's well over 3 million people. You've got all of this built up right along the water. And I mean, look, we all knew this was going to happen at some point. I mean, we do. How many times did we look out? I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Well, unfortunately, today is the when. So here's the timetable. High tide is later tonight. Here's a good little bit of positivity is the high tide is not particularly high. It comes later on tonight between 10 and midnight. It's about 2 feet. It was about a foot higher with Helene. So we are certainly looking at that water increasing based on the track. The NHC is going to have its new track coming out any minute. I'll let you know whether or not it's actually referencing the fact that this looks like there will be an impact on the bay. Again, I do not believe you are looking at that worst case 10 to 15 foot. I do not believe that. But I also don't think we're going to look out with 3 to 5 either. I think it's going to be somewhere in between. You could argue somewhere closer to Helene numbers, maybe a touch higher. But as you see here, there's the eye. It's west of Northport, and it is not moving due east, nor will it. So this is something that we're going to continue to track. Now, I'm going to check the new numbers from the Hurricane Center. But again, timing, the hurricane force winds will start moving onshore Sarasota County in the next couple of hours. There's already gusts well into the upper 60s. And that is just going to continue with power outages widespread across the region from west to east as we go on through the night. Now, I want to toss it over to our new meteorologist, Allie Blake. Allie's been with the company, with Scripps in Baltimore for quite a while. And Allie, you're going to tell us a little bit about what's going on in terms of that wind field, because boy, that is a much larger wind field, especially tropical storm, than it was just yesterday, right?
Yeah, Dennis, I mean, we can see the extent of the wind, almost hundreds of miles. And actually, we just got a report in that there was a 63-mile-per-hour wind gust out in St. Pete. So these storms are really starting to pack a punch as they get closer, of course, inland. And you can see this is one of our models. We have been mentioning, Dennis and the rest of the team, that unless the storm continues to take a hard right turn, that we likely see it move a little bit more north. But this is just a generalization of where the winds are and what exactly that you can see as the storm continues to move well on through. I mean, this is through about 5:30. We get closer to about 7. Yes, the storm is moving continually at about 16 miles per hour. So it is fast moving and moving off to the north and east. And as that storm moves through, we see some of the gustier winds with it and the heavier downpours that we're already seeing here in central Florida, I mean southwest Florida, as that storm continues to move well on through. Look, by about 9 o'clock, this is showing that right turn. I think we get a little north, but you know, it's just a matter of the track. Just a few miles can cause a big difference between the surge values and between wind totals across the storm as a whole. We continue to see still a 125-mile-per-hour storm as it moves through, and likely as it gets into the evening, we will see that storm, I think, maybe by about 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it just continues to move well into the central portion of the state. I still think those wind gusts are going to move up a little farther north, so for those in Hillsborough County, Pasco County, maybe even Polk, maybe some stronger totals as we get later into the evening. But I do think once we get to about midday tomorrow, a lot of that storm is going to be well out of the woods. I mean, a lot of it is going to finally start to clear back out. We know soon that there's going to be cleanup, and there should be a lot of cleanup going on. At least we'll have pretty nice weather for it. Back into the 70s, we'll see lows, of course, into at times the 60s. So at least at night, if you don't have power, you can open up those windows and start to really calm down out there and start to pick up some of those pieces, because I expect we're going to see some trees down in a lot of locations, power lines down, and a lot of what's left from Helene still out there that we can continue to pick up the pieces. We are still waiting for that latest update. I'm going to go refresh my screen real quick just to see if we get anything. And if I do, also I'll relay that back to Dennis. Still no updates yet. Still right now seeing maximum sustained winds of 125 miles per hour as that storm continues to move well on through. And Dennis, you know, we are continuing to see the storm move well in, and even on radar, just a lot of heavy rainfall in the area.
Yeah, and you look at those numbers right there. I mean, we literally have a storm that's split in half. So this will actually pop up immediately when the NHC changes. And I would not be surprised if, you know, they take the track and they bring it a little bit more to the north. It's kind of a moot point, right? We all see what we see. We know what we see. But I do think the discussions from the Hurricane Center will be interesting to see if they address the bay, because it's the elephant in the room. You have to. I mean, at this point, we've just said it. There's no way around the fact that at least part of the bay is going to get a 5 to 8 foot surge. Whether it's the entire bay, I mean, I honestly don't think I've ever seen a forecast where a 10-mile difference might be the difference from the entire bay having surge to maybe only the southern half. And I've certainly never seen models like the Slosh model showing earlier on having the South Bay 5-6 feet, the North Bay 0 surge. So, but that was based on the track earlier on. And unfortunately, I just can't see. A lot of times the Hurricane Center at this point says, you know, it is what it is. We're just going to track it, and we're gonna leave it to the locals to go in and kind of show what's going on. But at this point, still looking at 125 mile an hour winds. The pressure has been going up. That means it's weakening. So overall, let's recap the impacts, all right? Wind. I think a lot of times most folks, at least inland, think about the wind, because this is going to go across the state. And there will be hurricane force winds in Polk County. There will be hurricane force winds in Orlando. There will be hurricane force winds in Melbourne. So it is going to make it all the way across the state as a hurricane. But if this track is a little bit more closer to the bay, remember that 5 to 7 mile area with the higher winds could extend to 100 to 105 mile an hour gusts as far north as St. Pete. And that is a real possibility. And like I mentioned a little while ago, we had a model last night that showed 101, 102 in St. Pete this evening. I chose not to show it because the Hurricane Center was not going that route, but it might very well end up coming to fruition and being the way that this plays out. So look, we're hunkered down. I want to mention a couple of things for you. Odds are pretty high. Many folks are going to lose power. So we have a couple of, and I have chased hurricanes before, one in particular, Rita, back in 05, which was a Cat 5 in Beaumont, Texas. And once the storm hits and you lose power and it's nighttime, not only is it frightening, I mean, I know your anxiety is through the roof right now. I know it. We all feel it. We all sense it. I mean, I walk into the newsroom. I mean, every single person that works here lives in the community just like you do. And this is not national media that might live somewhere else. These are your neighbors. And these are your friends. And it just changed it looked like, Jason, didn't it? It did, actually. Matter of fact, the pressure went down a little bit, down to 948 millibars. And yeah, look at the track. Yep. Go ahead and zoom into that if you can. So there's the updated track. It was inevitable, right? I mean, it was. There is the track, still scooting kind of by northwestern Manatee, but certainly much, I mean, that's right over the Skyway. We're pretty darn close to it, right? So there it is. That is the updated track. Now, winds are down to 120. this could conceivably be very close to a Category 2 hurricane when it makes landfall. So that is the good news out of this. A weaker storm would limit the impacts significantly, obviously, and that shear is doing its job. I mean, and it's also picking up its forward speed northeast at 17 miles an hour. Pressure really hasn't dropped. In fact, it lowered a little bit, which means that it might not be a ton more than what we had with Helene, but we all know how devastating Helene was. And
a big bad tornado, and it is going to cause damage, and it will potentially be life-threatening to those especially caught off guard and who may not understand the full severity of the situation. On top of that, we've got another observed tornado warning still up here for Highway 710 in extreme northern and northwestern portions of West Palm County. That's going to be moved, or Palm Beach County. That's going to be moving up once again into that same corridor to the east of Indiantown that we've been talking about a lot today. We've got another confirmed tornado warning back here. These big water spouts, by the way, off of the Indian River shores, they're getting dangerously close to the coast here.
A new tornado warning has been issued.
Fly in here.
I mean, we're 4 hours out, for heaven's sakes. I mean, and this just goes to show how volatile hurricanes, when it comes to this point, you will never be able to predict these wobbles, ever. Nobody on earth who can do it. No model, no person, whatever. So at this point, we are doing what you're doing. We're looking at this storm point by point, you know, and I'm sure a lot of you have looked at it. Oh, look, it looks like it's going a little left. Oh, no, look, it's going a little right. I mean, I know you've done that because we all do it. But this is a track that I think ends up being correct. I think this is your final track. One that goes into the northwestern sections of Manatee or skims southern Pinellas County. And I do believe that that impact in terms of the surge, of a 6 to 9 foot surge in the bay, is probably going to end up being about right. So let's talk about other impacts. All right, let's talk about rain and the width of the winds. So this is the latest. Again, look, yeah, tropical storm force winds cover the entire state. I think the only place right now that doesn't have it is Jacksonville, and they will soon. The orange colors, that is 55 to 70, 58 to 74, I guess it is actually. And then there's your hurricane winds in the red. So the biggest threat by far for citrus, let's go county by county. The biggest threat by far for citrus and Hernando is rain. Easily, as that northern eye wall comes by, you're going to see 6 to 12 inches of rain in a saturated ground anyway. Wind, 55 to 70, maybe 55 to 65. That's citrus and Hernando. So for one of the few times our northern counties are going to get a better end result than everybody else because Citrus and Hernando, more often than not, are the ones who get the strongest winds. Pasco County, winds, well, water, 8 to 12. I think they're going to be a little higher than this in some spots because you're closer to that really solid eye wall. Winds, 60, gusts to 65 to 80. I think Pasco, a little closer to the coast, maybe a bit more, no friction. Inland, 65 to 80. Pinellas County, southern Pinellas, St. Pete, southward, will probably have 100 to 105 mile-an-hour wind gusts. Not sustained, but gusts. Central Pinellas County, Clearwater, over to Feather Sound, Safety Harbor, Seminole, Largo, 75 to 90 gusts. Similar to what many folks had with Irma and what some folks had with Helene. Northern Pinellas, 65 to 75, maybe gusts to 85 at times. In the evening, into the early morning hours, I think by mid-overnight hours, like 2, 3 a.m., a lot of this wind will begin to be pushing inland as well by then. Hillsborough County, northern Hillsborough County, again, same setup. 70 to 85 mile-an-hour winds. Gusts, not sustained. I don't think there's going to be a lot of areas in our region outside of that 10-mile area that are going to have significantly high sustained winds. It'll be small, but it will be potent. And that could very well go very close to downtown Tampa, by the way. It absolutely could. Southern Hillsborough County, you're going to get more wind. You're going to have 90 to 100, maybe gusts to 110. I think that's going to be very, very close to where that eye goes over. Polk County, 55 to 65. Gusts a little bit higher, gusts to 75, certainly hurricane force, but the storm will be weakening by then. Southern counties, Manatee and Sarasota, where the surge will be the highest, you're going to have a surge of 8 to 12 feet, especially in northern Manatee. But honestly, it's going to push a lot of water. I think that 8 to 12 could easily go all the way down through Sarasota County as well. Your winds will be 85 to nearly 100, especially in Manatee, a little lower in Sarasota. So looks like Sarasota will miss the bulk of the extreme winds. You're still going to get wind, but unfortunately the surge is going to be your biggest issue. Hardy and DeSoto, Hardy more so than DeSoto. Hardy will be closer to the center. You're probably talking 70 to 80. Lower rainfall totals. As I was saying earlier, I guarantee you tonight, when this storm goes through, if you live in DeSoto County, or especially even Hardy County, you go outside, you're going to see stars out, and you're still going to have 60 mile-an-hour winds. It's going to be a crazy thing because this storm is literally cut in half. And then Highlands, about the same on the low end, 55 to 65. So these numbers as we go through the evening, these are some computer models. What I gave you just a second ago was my experience and as up to date as it gets. These models run every few hours. But you notice the numbers are about what we're saying, 55 to 70 in that ballpark. But that small area that you're not going to see on these maps where the eye actually crosses, where you're going to have, it's like a little buzzsaw, a little 4 or 5 mile buzzsaw. I mean, I liken it to a 5 mile wide tornado. That's where you're going to have most of the extreme winds as this comes on through. So these are the updated storm totals. Jason just updated this, yes? Yes. All right, here you go. These are the new storm surge totals from the Hurricane Center as the 5 o'clock advisory. And these are ones that I would hang my hat on. You know, for the last 2 days, we've been saying I just think that 10 to 15 for the Bay is just way too high. I will tell you, I think the Northern Bay is going to be on the low end, closer to maybe lower than 6, to be honest. The southern part of the Bay, that's going to be closer to that 7 to 8, similar to what you had with Helene, and maybe even a bit higher. But you will not see that 10 to 15. So if there's anything positive out of this change in the forecast, it's that at least we can take that off the table. We've talked wind, we've talked rain. The biggest surge potential is still going to be Manatee and Sarasota County. where there will be a 9 to 13 foot surge. And even as far south as Fort Myers, an 8 to 12 foot surge. So what we've been saying from the beginning, you do not want to be on the south side of this eye. The storm surge will be highest right at or slightly east and south of where landfall occurs. So that could be really close to Bradenton or maybe even in the bay itself. That's kind of the way this is shaping up. All right, so those are the new numbers. We're going to look at some live radar. We'll come back and talk with you in just a second. You guys want me to go back to the desk with Nadine and LSG?
Yes. Yep.
All right, guys, what you got?
We'll give you a little bit of a break. So we're going to talk about some power outages real quick. If you take a look at these numbers, we're going to scroll through some maps. This is TECO right now. TECO reporting almost 19,000 customers have already lost electricity. And the major areas are South Tampa, Sun City Center, and also the Seffner area. Meanwhile, Duke Energy, pull up this map. This one has just been creeping up and up. Over 14,000 outages at this point. And Florida Power and Light, FPL, almost 8,000 with no power in Manatee and almost 1,500 in Sarasota County. And we've really been seeing these numbers start to go up within the past couple of hours.
Here's an important reminder for you. We do want you to be able to reach us 24/7 during and after Milton. Just scan this QR code on your screen to download our apps. This way you can stay connected to us even if you lose power or signal, and you can watch us on your phone. And to also download our apps, just take out your cell phone right now and you can go to your app store. This is where you can search ABC Action News and then click download. Once you are in the ABC Action News app, you'll see our live feed at the top of our homepage.
We do want to take a live look right now. This is from our FDOT cam. This is the Dick Meisner Bridge. This is the bridge leading up to the Sunshine Skyway. It's the northernmost bridge in Lower Tampa Bay. And Nadine, this is exactly why bridges are closed right now, because absolutely no one should be on a bridge on a road in these types of conditions, especially with what we're seeing right now in our Lower Tampa Bay counties.
Yeah, and we also know that all those bridges actually closed by like noon or 1 today because of that exact reason. And then I don't know if you saw that tornado down in Southwest Florida. It came right over a bridge as somebody was driving, and absolutely not a time to be out on the roads.
Yeah, and at this point, we're actually still waiting for an update about the Courtney Campbell Causeway and the Gandy Bridge. The westbound lanes had closed. As far as we know, the eastbound lanes are still open. I can't imagine anyone's driving on them, but we'll of course keep you updated once we know those bridges are fully closed. And we do also have an important advisory from the Polk County Sheriff's Office. You can see this picture right here. 2 streets are flooded and impassable. One of them in Lakeland at Reynolds Road at Main Avenue, and also in Winter Haven, 42nd Street Northwest at Avenue Q Northwest. Both are flooded. You see in these pictures, they're advising people to avoid the areas. Basically, just don't be on the road anyway. But if you are for some reason on the road, don't drive through the flooded waters. Don't walk through the flooded waters. Again, we're going to have that issue of we don't know what's actually in the water on the road, so just avoid these flood waters.
It's also just the beginning. We're going to see a lot more of these roads flooded, especially if that debris gets kind of trapped in the drains there. So just be patient with us throughout the night and make sure you stay in place at this point. Also, take a look at this. The city of Tampa just posted these pictures to social media. This is the Krause pumping station, now protected by this orange tube that you see here. This is called a Tiger Dam. This protects the building from storm surge. Protecting the pump station is crucial because this does ensure that the wastewater will continue to flow during Hurricane Milton. We're told that the National Guard actually worked for more than 24 hours to get this Tiger Dam installed. It's interesting because I covered Hurricane Ian, and so many of the stormwater systems failed because the flooded waters got into the utility stations. That's why you see a lot of these cities turn off the waters on the barrier islands, because they're doing it ahead of time to protect our utility stations and our water systems. Because after Ian, I didn't have water for 9 days. That's no bathing, no flushing the toilets, no eating or drinking. It was miserable. But to have these flood protections in place, and we saw it after Helene outside of TGH. Do you remember that video?
Yes.
It's just crucial for the storm surge.
Yeah, so outside of TGH, they had that wall that worked really well. It's incredible technology. We do want to go to some drone video. This is from the Gulf of Mexico, and you're looking at waves from Hurricane Milton. This was shot by NOAA. If you get seasick, maybe just look down for a little bit. The storm obviously getting closer to our coast, and as Dennis mentioned earlier, the strongest winds are going to be closest to the eye of Milton. I believe he said 5 to 7 miles. And this is a dangerous hurricane, no matter where it makes landfall. But again, this drone video by NOAA.
And it's 5:10 here. I wanted to say, now that I'm joining you, Lauren, you know, we're so incredibly honored that you're even trusting us and watching us right now. This is going to be an overnight event. We also know that we're tired. We're not even 2 weeks from Helene, so there's a lot of stress and fatigue happening with all of this. But when you're tired, it's hard to make decisions, and that's why we're trying to be here for you, to keep you as informed as possible so you can make the best decision for your family. So I just wanted to personally say thank you for trusting us, and you know, we're part of your same neighborhoods and we're feeling the same anxiety as well. Yeah. We also have reporters everywhere, so you don't have to be going outside during the storm and looking at it yourself. This is as Hurricane Milton continues to barrel towards the state of Florida. Residents in the Palma Vista neighborhood in Bradenton are gearing up to ride out the storm.
Yeah, that's where we find ABC Action News anchor Paul LaGrone. Paul, you were talking to a sweet couple from Boston earlier who stayed. I really related to them, used to nor'easters and not hurricanes. You're not in an evacuation zone right now, so obviously it's raining a lot, but how have conditions changed for you?
Yeah, Carl and Gigi, really sweet couple. They're right there behind us right here watching it as everyone else is unfold. And I'll tell you, the rain right now is really what we're feeling at this moment. We are seeing some trees start to sway, some palm trees, what you would expect. A measured wind gust around 50 plus miles an hour, sustained around 30. The rain spraying off the roof here. So that's kind of what we're dealing with at this moment. Just to give you a sense of where we are, this is the Palma Vista, Palma Sola area. We are about, I would say, 2.5 miles from the Manatee River. The Bradenton Police Department just put out on Twitter, X if you will, that the Manatee River has already appears to be flooding and has overflowed its banks. There's some street flooding happening there closer to the river. That is about a few miles to the north of where we are. We're also a few miles north of IMG, the famous sports academy where star athletes all over the country, basically a boarding school for them, just to give you a sense of where we are. And we're about a couple of miles inland from the Intracoastal. So we're in an area that is surrounded by water. Now this neighborhood here, elevation around 22 feet. The expected storm surge that Dennis was just talking about has it around 9 to 13 feet. So you're going to have streets that are going to be flooded. We even saw, as we were driving in today, some sort of pre-storm flooding happening with the outer bands. It doesn't take much to flood this area. But where we are right now, I would say is insulated from that flooding, but it's almost like an island in the sense that it's dry, or at least not flooded, but the area surrounding here could see some major flooding as the storm surge starts to come in. And then when it comes to the wind, that's kind of the X factor that we're working with right now, because how strong will that wind be? Will we get the full 120 with the eye wall? We're getting a gust right now. And just to give you a sense of where I am, I mean, the rain is coming right off the roof of the house where we're staying, hitting me right in the face. And it's coming from this direction. So will we get that eye wall that we've seen play out? Will it go further north? Will it make the turn right into Manatee? That is the ultimate real-time X factor that we're working with right now. But I can tell you the rain is starting to pile up. Storm surge, I would say, is probably we're not getting the full effect of that yet. But you know, it's starting to phase in hour by hour. This is what you know, you're going to get a clearer picture as we're all watching this unfold together. And so, you know, I think, you know, just to put a final touch on this, you know, and Dennis and the meteorologists know this better than I do. Trying to figure out if this thing is going to continue to track north. Will it go one more click into the bay, which would obviously not be good news? Will it stay in the line that it is projected now and come over Manatee, Bradenton, where we are, and perhaps Palmetto? And how much wind will we see? How much storm surge will we see? How much rain will we see? And in effect, how much flooding will we see? We're still early. I know this thing is moving at 17, 16 miles an hour, which in a sense is good, having covered too many hurricanes to count in my previous time, even before I got to Tampa. I always preferred a storm that would come in quickly and leave quickly. I always prefer that, and I think everyone does, rather than the slow-moving soaker that just stays over you. So there is some silver lining perhaps there. It's just too early to kind of characterize good news, bad news. I don't want to go there because you just don't know until you're really in it, until you're through it, because you can feel something that's perhaps not feeling as bad as what you expected in one area, but somewhere else is getting it worse than they thought. There's a lot of moving parts to this puzzle that make up this hurricane, and so to characterize it, it's just difficult to do. But I will tell you that the folks here, and it wasn't just Gigi and Carl that decided to stay, and they did not board up their home, and they felt comfortable staying here. Other folks did board up their home. Apparently, a lot of people did stay here and are going to ride it out come what may. So that's the very latest here in Bradenton, in Manatee County, where, like you, in Tampa Bay and parts beyond, we're just sort of watching, waiting, and feeling the effects of Hurricane Milton and wondering, you know, what are we going to see and when are we going to see it? Back to you guys.
Definitely a lot of emotions, not knowing exactly where this is going to go, and either north or here or south. Either way, our neighbors are going to be impacted, and so many of our neighbors were hurt after Helene.
And it's tough because if it doesn't go one place, it goes the other place.
Yeah, and our hearts, it's all in our viewing area. It's all of our neighbors, literally, people that we report with and talk to every day. So, of course, we're going to be here with you, and we have our teams out all over the area. Our team coverage for Hurricane Milton does continue in Pinellas County now. Again, we were just talking about this. It got so hard hit by Hurricane Helene. We still got a ton of storm debris lining the streets there.
Yeah, ABC Action News reporter Eric Waxler is live for us in downtown St. Pete tonight. Eric, you're a little bit elevated. Conditions definitely got worse in St. Pete since we last talked with you. What is it like there now?
Yeah, absolutely, Lauren. In the last hour or so, we have seen the wind really pick up, and the rain as well. And just take a look. We're here right on Central Avenue in downtown St. Pete, and we have just seen the conditions just deteriorate really fast. We've actually seen some people still out driving around, which is beyond me at this point. But if you look down, that is 17th Street, as we see somebody on the road right now turning on to 17th Street, and you see there's a tree down there already as the water starts to puddle up, and he's probably figuring out which way to go because there's a tree in the road, and the conditions are only going to get worse. I mean, we're just seeing the front end of the storm now, but as you just heard from Dennis and our weather team, if this storm does in fact inch closer to the bay, that is not good news for all the people here in St. Petersburg that just dealt with all the storm surge from Hurricane Helene, because we're talking about so many communities, St. Pete Beach, northeast St. Petersburg, that just can't take any more water, and all of St. Petersburg is really in jeopardy at this point with that storm surge. We see some people trying to enjoy themselves. These are brand new, relatively new apartment buildings here, and we've been keeping an eye for the lighter side of things on the Jack Skellington Halloween decoration up there. And yeah, they know they're on TV. We've been yelling across at each other, and they're trying to make the best of it. And I guess we know when Jack Skellington flies away that things have really gotten bad. But on a more serious note, people here, the city government put out an alert yesterday about the cranes. I mean, we've all seen, if you've been to downtown St. Petersburg, those cranes that are working on new towers going up, and those things can only withstand so much. So if winds do reach over 100 miles an hour, there is definite concern about what could happen to those cranes. I did a little bit of research and saw there have been cases where cranes have crashed down from high winds in other parts of the country in the past. Of course, we hope that does not happen here, but there was a warning put out that if you do live near one of those cranes, that you should probably relocate yourself, or at least not be near the windows, because obviously we can only imagine the devastation if one of those things came toppling over. Also, just to give you another perspective here, that's 275 right now. There's somebody just driving by. I've seen emergency vehicles going on 275, not too many regular cars or trucks, but there are some people for some reason that are out on the highway right now that have chose to venture out into this as conditions get worse. Now, we're here at the True Hotel by Hilton on Central Avenue, and this place is a 7-story building, so we're feeling secure. We're on the 3rd floor right now, and this is the lobby in here, and there are actually dozens, obviously hundreds of people that have taken refuge in this hotel, and we're gonna go talk to a couple of them inside here. Hey, everybody. And people from nearby have chosen to come here to stay safe. Some of them have had to deal with the flooding from Hurricane Helene, and they don't want to deal with it again. So they're here. This is all one family, right? For the most part.
We're the Hurricane family.
The Hurricane family. So introduce everybody.
I'm Michelle. This is Liv, my daughter, Safina, Robin, Devin, and this is Titus over here. And we met during the hurricane, actually, our little hurricane party here.
Right, everybody is turning into a family here. They're playing pool, they're playing chess, they're eating food. What brought you here?
The flooding, we actually really suffered pretty bad in the Helene. We had about 4 to 5 feet, and our cars are gone, all of that. So it made it pretty difficult to evacuate.
Yeah. And what are you doing to pass the time besides answering silly questions from me?
Well, like you said, we've been playing pool. This place is great. True has been awesome. So a lot of shout out to them. We want to keep the morale high, and it's been going really well. I mean, we made a lot of friends here over the last, 10 hours, I would say. Yeah. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I almost feel like we're at the Westminster Dog Show because I've seen so many dogs that people have brought here. I heard they waive the pet fee here, so that's a nice perk here that they've done to take care of people who are fleeing the storm and the worst of it. And well, I'll tell you, now that we're indoors, it feels a lot better than it was out there because it is getting definitely rough as conditions here in St. Pete worsen. But we'll be here through the night to show you what's happening. Live in downtown St. Pete, Eric Waxler, ABC Action News.
Eric, thank you so much, because we know it's so difficult for so many families to now have to go through this again. You just heard that they lost their cars and they just went through Helene. And the emergency management director in Pinellas County earlier today said, for those of you who were punched in Hurricane Helene, this will be a knockout, as we know. But to hear that, it's good that the family is making the best of it and they're safe and, playing pool, doing what they can in a safe area.
We know so many families are going through this right now, and it's just so tough for so many counties and neighborhoods.
That is probably the hardest part in covering all of this and knowing what we're going to have overnight. Let's go ahead and go down to downtown Sarasota, where we will definitely be feeling both storm surge and high winds there. We're already seeing that with Hurricane Milton with our Chad Mills live there right now.
Yeah, Chad, how are conditions there now?
Guys, we're at Marina Jack in Sarasota. Downtown Sarasota is in front of me. Sarasota Bay is behind me. And right now we are getting some wind and some pretty heavy rain where we're standing. That's one of the concerns. But the main concern has been, for days here, storm surge, which is expected to rise overnight sometime, perhaps into the early morning hours tomorrow. But if you look out to this peninsula behind me, you can already tell the water is starting to rise here in Sarasota Bay. I would say about an hour ago, this peninsula was squarely out of the water. Now some of those waves are lapping over that peninsula. And yes, there is a person out there fishing right now, which of course is not advisable, but it is what it is right here in Sarasota. The city has, and the county for that matter, Sarasota County has been really trying for days to get people out of zones like the one where I am at. This is A right here in evacuation zone A, but they are also ordering people out of B and C. And it looks like over the past couple of days, a number of people, I'd say the vast majority of people, did listen to Sarasota County and the city of Sarasota and really got out of here. Driving around downtown Sarasota, you really don't see anyone. We were out on some of the barrier islands yesterday, which are in the distance there with all the rain and wind. They're hard to see. But you can kind of see the silhouette of Bird Key, St. Armand Circle, Lido Key in the area behind it. When we drove through there yesterday, again, there were just not too many people left behind. That is the good news here as they brace for potentially, as Dennis said earlier, 8 to 12 feet of storm surge, worst case scenario here in Sarasota County. Send things back to you guys in the studio.
You can definitely see things getting bad there. Of note, earlier I saw stairs behind Chad, so he can go up. I know that people might be concerned that he's right there on the water and seeing the water go up. Our crews have done this. We have probably one of the most experienced teams, I feel like, in the world. I'm so honored to work alongside you guys, but our crews know what to do, and there are stairs nearby, so just in case you were worried.
Our crews are in safe locations.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just in Sarasota. We're continuing to see the conditions deteriorate there.
Yeah, and that's where we also find ABC Action News reporter Michael Paluska in a different area. Paluska, I hear that wind behind you. What's it been like for you, and how has it changed?
Yeah, you know, we've had some of the bands we've been mentioning come in, and it was actually pretty calm here just about 10 minutes ago. We had another one. My photographer, Reed Moeller, we're actually at an Airbnb, a block construction, super strong. Has a second floor, so he's shooting down on me from the second floor. We have a really good vantage point of this area. We're east of where Chad Mills is in a neighborhood. Ooh, there was a nice bit of lightning. East of Chad Mills, and we just want to show you our area where we're at. The winds are really picking up. This is probably one of the worst bands we've seen so far come through here, and you can see, if you can see the clouds, they're moving due east. That is due north where you're looking. Look how fast those clouds are moving. This thing is whipping through here. Pretty good lightning bolt that just came through. We saw the flash, and it, heard the thunder about 15 seconds, so I'm not really too worried about that right now. We've been picking an area where we can try to report throughout the entirety of this storm. We got this transformer that you see right here. That is obviously concerning. So far we have power. One of the big concerns in this neighborhood, it's very varied with some of the types of homes. We're in a new construction, brand new, and you see this little house down here with the carport, and we've been looking at this, and hopefully as this thing verifies, the buzzsaw that Dennis has been mentioning doesn't come through here, because that is extremely concerning. Frame construction, looks like the one next door is brick. That house will hold up a lot better. But as these winds shift, we're going to shift and move around with the storm. As I mentioned, coming around right now from the east, from the southeast, and then it'll swing around the house that we're in. We've been talking to people in this area, and they've told me that they're just saying goodbye to their homes, and they're hoping they're there when they get back. We were on Lido Beach yesterday, and a gentleman was boarding up, and he said, I don't know if I'm gonna have a home to come back to. I know, with Dennis mentioning the bay and the surge kind of dropped, and it's a lot more now because we're going to be that onshore flow. And so with the extreme case now, the surge, as you just saw, 9 to 13 feet, that is unreal. So we're hoping that people have evacuated this area. We already saw what Helene can do, and we're expecting any moment for the Weather Service to potentially push out an extreme wind warning for our area. As you know, the storm's coming in a lot earlier, a lot sooner. We were prepared for maybe a 2 a.m. landfall. Now it's maybe around 10 or 9. So we're going to try to ride this thing out. I think where we are in our block home, we're not in an evacuation zone that's been called. We're in evacuation zone E. We've had some localized street flooding, but I haven't seen anyone out here driving their cars around. We walked around, cruised the neighborhood, no cars in driveways. I think people said, hey, this is pretty dangerous and we got to get out of here. The one thing that concerns me, as we've been hearing, are the people that may have stayed behind. Once it gets to 45 miles per hour, first responders won't be able to come out and get you. And you're going to be calling 911, and you're going to be in your home. And as we've seen with other storms like Helene and Ian, and Debbie and Adalia, and all these storms that we've been covering, there's no way out once the water comes up. I think people still have a little time to get the heck out if they can, if they're on those barrier islands, and that would be super important, because you see this thing coming up where it's coming up, it's going to push a ton of water. So we're going to be out here monitoring this situation for you guys. Nothing crazy now, some tropical storm force winds, maybe a couple of gusts. Nothing hurricane strength at this moment. Thinking that might start verifying probably around 8, 9, 10 o'clock as we're in the southern part, the dirty side of the eye wall that we've been seeing. The track has taken it over our house by a couple of miles, but with this new track that the National Hurricane Center released, we're now a lot farther south, so we'll be stuck in that eye wall for a while. And so we're going to try to be on air as long as we can and let people know what the conditions are. And obviously, we're going to do it safely. For now, we're live here in Sarasota. Michael Paluska, ABC Action News.
Michael, absolutely great reporting out there. Stay safe. I want to mention that while Michael was talking from Sarasota County just sent out an email. As of 5:15, it is no longer safe to be out on the roadways. Individuals should not be out on the roadways. You should now shelter in place. I know that we have been saying that for the last few hours, but to get that email from Sarasota government to the public as we were in Sarasota County, I felt like I needed to mention that again. At this point, it isn't safe to go out. You should stay in place.
Truly, truly. And we do want to stay in our southern counties now and move now to Manatee County and the Palmetto area.
ABC Action News reporter Katie LaGrone is in Palmetto. And Katie, you are out in the elements right now. You're at a shelter. Is it full with a lot of folks who evacuated? I heard about 10,000 people in Manatee County took the warning.
Yeah, the county is experiencing over 10,000 people in different evacuation shelters. About 18 shelters have been set up. At the one that we're at here, Virgil Mills Elementary, there's more than 1,000 people that have evacuated. That gives you some perspective as to the intensity and the seriousness that people in Palmetto are taking. Just for some perspective, the principal of the school told me for Helene just 2 weeks ago, they had nearly 400 people evacuate. And tonight they have about 1,000, just over 1,000. Right now, outside, we are very close to the shelter. In fact, if I just walk a little bit, I am under the awning. So I want to make sure that viewers know that we are being very, very safe. In fact, I even have the principal outside the doors and a deputy from the sheriff's office. They are not only protecting us outside, thank you guys very much, but they're of course also protecting, more importantly, all the folks that are inside. Just a short time ago, they actually called it. They said, hey, nobody can come outside. People were coming out here, as you can imagine, just to get a breath of fresh air, take a break, talk to each other. This is a pet-friendly shelter, so some people were walking their dogs, and they just came out and say, hey guys, we're done, we're shutting it down. So everybody is now inside, and they are literally manning the doors now to keep people from coming outside because the gusts of wind and the rain is starting to pick up. We have gone through various squalls. I mean, there have been times where I have been out here or watching, and I mean, you can barely see, what's in front of you because there's just this band of rain and gusts of wind. We're hearing the flapping of signs, of just road signs, stop signs. There's a sign, actually, just Matt, if you want to show the viewers, if you want to just pan down to that sign over there on the left-hand side of your screen, that was flapping. It was making so much noise that we were sort of looking around going, what's going on? And that one was flapping quite a bit. So you have these periodic, as we all deal with this in every storm I've ever covered, where you kind of have this lull where it's relatively, it seems it's fine, just like right now, and then you'll have these squalls of just wind and rain that come through, and it's very gusty, very intimidating. Right now, thankfully, we're in sort of a little bit of a lull, but certainly this is just periodic. It's picking up, it stops, and then it picks up again. But for the most part, what we're seeing here in Palmetto, people taking this seriously. I mean, we were out earlier today. Businesses are boarded up, homes are boarded up, sandbags are in place, lots of mobile homes in the city of Palmetto. I mean, it's a small coastal city, 7 square miles, surrounded by water on three sides. Surge and flooding is, of course, the big issue here, as it is in every part of Tampa Bay. That's what we're sort of keeping watch of. That's what people are keeping watch of. Over at the Manatee River, I heard Paul's live shot where he said that the Manatee County Sheriff's Office is already saying that some of the water is coming into those, coming over the seawalls into the roads there. Not a surprise. I mean, there are parts of Palmetto that flood on an average day, and so certainly this is, what they're looking out for. During Helene, and I've said this before, they had about 4 feet of storm surge, and so right now, obviously, the expectation is that they are concerned about 12, even higher storm surge. That will be obviously closer to the water. Here where we are pretty inland. We're about 5, 6, maybe even 7 miles away from the Manatee River, so we feel pretty safe. In fact, we're actually staying in an Airbnb just across the street from the shelter. You can see just how many people are here. I mentioned about the 1,000, people inside. I mean, and this is, I should mention, this is actually a shelter, the elementary school, and then right next door is a middle school, and there are people there as well. So this is a packed house. Next door, they've got quite a few people, and so certainly we're hopeful that people will be they're taking care of themselves and they're doing what they need to do. But certainly the concern here is that water, Dennis. I know we're all looking out for that.
Yeah. And the water is, in terms of damage with this system, the water would probably be 80%. The wind might be 15%. Maybe the freshwater flooding might be 5%. So it's all about the surge. But in terms of the wind, we've got 2 things to cover. I'll start with the wind, and Jason can talk about the track and the water. Because overall, when you get this system, as it's getting closer, it is going to spread the highest wind that it has right near the eye. We've been saying 5 to 7 miles for the last couple of days, and I'm certainly not going to change now. Hurricane force winds extend 35 miles out, all right? The extreme winds, maybe 5 or 6 miles. But in those extreme winds, you could see winds of 90, 95, maybe even a little higher. Now, there is a possibility, and it's just a possibility, there's a possibility that the Hurricane Center or the local weather service actually would issue this. It's called an extreme wind warning. And Mike Paluska just mentioned it. And for the life of me, Jason and I still don't know how he knew that. Because we're like, someone texted you that. So an extreme wind warning means winds of 115 miles an hour, sustained. So it is the real deal. Now, there was an extreme wind warning in Bartow with Irma. I remember that because you had this giant hurricane coming in from the south. And none of the area had sustained hurricane force winds. But when it got into Polk County, right around Bartow, we had about a 20-minute stretch where the winds just went nuts, and we had the extreme wind warning issued. So if you get an alert, this is my point. If that were to happen, it would probably be somewhere between southern Pinellas, southwestern Hillsborough, or northwestern Manatee. Probably in that area if it were to happen. If you get an alert on your phone or you hear us talking about it, that is every bit as dangerous as a tornado warning in your area. Extreme wind warnings are the real deal. So if you were to see that, you want to immediately act. There's the eye. We've been saying this for a while now. You can literally split the storm in half. If this were to move through your area at night tonight, and you live south of where this eye is, I've been saying this for a few days, you'll likely see stars. There'll be very little rain. There's still going to be wind, but there will be very, very little rain, and there will be breaks in that cloud cover. So, boy, I'm looking over at that picture. Look at the, guys, can you take Max 1? Look at the picture of the Hyatt in Clearwater here.
It's barely hanging on.
Yeah, check it out. Check out Max 1, guys. There you go. I mean, that's right now.
Pier 60's down there. Just hard to see.
Yeah. So it's definitely coming in, and let's go back to me, because what are we looking at? Right there. So there's your storm. There's the eye. Most of the wind right there. The extreme wind right there, coming up close on Sarasota. But what's really noteworthy about this storm is all of the squally weather is at or north of the center. Now remember, this is spinning counterclockwise. So all this red right here is moving away, but there's still a lot over here. And that red, that's just heavy rain. So overall, I talked about the freshwater flooding issues. There's already flash flood warnings in effect. And there will be more heavy rain for hours to come. So we've covered the rain. We've talked about the surge factors, and again, I want to address the surge in the sense that if this storm gets up to around the Skyway, there's bound to be higher surge in the bay. The Hurricane Center did bump down the surge forecast. For days, we've been saying that 10 to 15 is just not going to happen. But here's why they do it, and it makes sense. The goal of the Hurricane Center is to keep you safe. It's to get the weather right, obviously, but it's to keep you safe and to make sure, darn sure, that you are informed, that everything that they know, you know, so you can decide how to keep your family safe. Right now, if you're watching, you're probably hunkered down. Maybe you've got shutters up. Maybe you have plywood up. Maybe you didn't do any of that and you're just hanging in. Maybe you regret not putting up the shutters, or maybe you just didn't have the opportunity to do so. But the point is, we're all here watching this come in, and you based your decision on all your information, right? Everything, you heard it here. You heard it on social media. You heard your neighbors talking about it. Everybody was talking about what was going to happen. And then you made your decision. Well, the Hurricane Center's goal is we're going to tell them the worst case that they could possibly see. And then they make their decision. Because even if it isn't that bad, we would much rather them prepare for the worst and it doesn't happen than to under-prepare and you get hit blindsided. So that is why you saw those numbers of 10 to 15 feet the last few days. When you heard Greg and you heard me and Jason and Shay saying, yeah, we're going to share what the Hurricane Center went with, but we really don't think they're going to see those high of numbers. Now they've come down to 6 to 9 feet. That is a very reasonable forecast. And Greg and I were talking, some of the models are hinting that the highest surge in the bay will be on the south side of the bay, as opposed to the north side. So that's something else we'll have to watch closely. But overall, when you look at these storms, it's humbling in this sense that, you know, we have this technology, we have this experience, we feel like we're pretty good at what we do in forecasting the weather the best that we can. And yet, when a storm gets this close, we're no different than you. We're looking at that, hey look, it looks like it went a little right. Hey look, it looks a little left. It's called nowcasting. In other words, it's looking out the window. That's what I always say. You throw the models out the window and you look out the window and you're 4 or 5 hours out. Well, Jason just noticed something. We were talking about this. It looks like there's another wobble. Now, I don't want to be a dog chasing my tail, and every single time there's a move, oh, look, it went here. I'll never forget, I was watching a national weather guy as the storm was coming into Houston years ago. He's like, oh, look, there's a significant turn. It was a little wobble. And it wasn't a turn, and it went right back again the next 15, 20 minutes. So we don't want to misinform you with a wobble that is not a trend. It's just a short-term thing. But Jason, it's certainly something that we noted. And the reason it's important is because 10 miles, and we're talking about a storm that's 1,000 miles away, and it boils down to a 10-mile wobble, which realistically, and I talked about this a little while ago, and I'll bring it up one more time. A buddy of mine's well-connected in the insurance industry, a meteorologist, and knows about loss, and that's kind of what he deals with in terms of loss from natural disasters. And he was telling me that landfall in Sarasota would be $100 billion in damage if it were a Cat 4 staying at a Cat 4 or higher. He said landfall in the Bay at a Cat 4 or higher is $175 billion. The only storm with more would have been Katrina. More than Ian, more than anything. So when we talk about a 10-mile difference, that 10 miles is going into the bay and bringing that water up in the bay as opposed to moving into an area that might have less of an impact, at least for the number of people. But let me be clear before I toss it over to Jason. It's very significant that the Hurricane Center dropped that 10 to 15 foot prediction down to 6 to 9. I know it's still a scary sound, and it is. It's comparable to what Helene did, and Helene destroyed a lot of property and ruined a lot of lives. But at least it's headed in the right direction, and the storm is weakening. And it's wobbling too. Jason, what do you got on that?
Yeah, so still watching St. Pete, Tampa, and then getting through Hillsborough County and Polk County. Because of this transitioning to what we call an extratropical cyclone. A bunch of weather nerd stuff I won't spend time on you with, but when you factor in the situation that we're in with dry air, wind shear, and there are fronts now attached to this system, this is going to be transitioning into an extratropical cyclone. What that means for you and me is that the northern eye wall on the northern side, we've talked about the prolific rain rates that'll be coming out of this system as we go through the next 6 to 8 hour period. But that also is going to increase the winds within the northern eye wall itself. So while the winds may be coming down, we're still looking at a very, very strong northern eye wall, and depending on exactly where that goes, we could be looking at a pretty strong swath of some very, very dangerous winds here as we go into the next couple of hours. And we're waiting to see, like Dennis said, if we're going to get an extreme wind warning. I did talk to the National Weather Service a few minutes ago while Dennis was on, and she said yes, they will be issuing one. It's not the first one we've had in Sarasota County. There was one in Sarasota County during Ian, and then of course during Irma we had one, but if we get one in the Manatee, Hillsborough, Pinellas County area, it may be the first time we've had one issued here. So like we talked about a second ago, the track generally moving to the north-northeast. We've seen a little left shift, a little right shift now, perhaps a little bit more of a right wobble at this point, but the overall trend, it doesn't matter. The forecast stays the same. Pinellas, Hillsborough, Manatee, Sarasota counties. This is the potential landfall projection here over the next 3 hour period, and then we're going to start to see that northern band moving through St. Pete, Clearwater, Feather Sound, over towards St. Pete, Clearwater International Airport, into the West Chase area, through downtown Tampa, West Shore, down through MacDill Air Force Base, and then eventually east over toward Plant City, maybe over the Brandon vicinity as well, where we could be seeing some very strong winds within that northern eye wall. Have to watch the radar every minute to see exactly who's going to be getting the worst, and that's what we're going to be doing here. We have 5 meteorologists here for you tonight, and we're going to keep you posted on minute by minute, hour by hour, who's going to be seeing potentially the worst. So we have a new flash flood warning in effect. I talked about this a couple of hours ago. These flash flood warnings are issued, then they'll be expired, then they'll reissue some new ones. We have 2 new ones over the last hour. The first one's going to be here in Sarasota County. This is also where the outer eye wall is beginning to move on shore. So until 7:45, we have the flash flood warning here for those of you Sarasota and also northern Sarasota County and western Manatee County. The new one in Pinellas County also now includes southwest Pasco County. So this is going until 7:45. Greg tweeted and posted out to our social media accounts about half hour ago, general 5 to 7 inches. Is that what I saw? 4 to 7 inches of rainfall has already fallen, the heaviest in Pinellas County so far. And we've got another 8-9 hour period of these extreme rainfall rates to go. And this is what's unfortunately setting up the potential catastrophe for us, that the 12 to 18 inches of rainfall that falls here from Pasco and Pinellas County east through Hillsborough and getting into Sumter Lake, Hernando County, you're included in this as well. So if you're not getting the extreme winds with the eye to the south, we are getting, unfortunately, the extreme rain along into the north of this path, and we could see rainfall totals 1 foot to 1.5 feet by the time we wrap the system up. Getting a little bit closer inspection here on the eye wall, we have a couple of things that are happening with the eye. We kind of had 2 eye walls as the system is weakening and slowly transitioning to that extra tropical system we were talking about. The first one setting up for us is now moving onshore here. That one has 74+ mile/hour sustained winds with it. So in Sarasota, coastal Sarasota, from Nokomis all the way up through Turtle Beach, getting into Siesta Key, downtown Sarasota, and then up toward the airport in southern Manatee County, this is where we're beginning to see those sustained 74 mile/hour winds. The extreme winds, and when the eye starts to get closer to the coast, where we'll likely get that extreme wind warning that Dennis was talking about, are right here in this area. And this is where we're getting the 100+ mile/hour winds. Once those get closer to the coast, anticipate that extreme wind warning, and that will be for sustained winds of 115 miles/hour moving onshore wherever we see this making landfall, Sarasota, Manatee, or southern Pinellas, or southern coastal sections here of Hillsborough County. So that's where the eye wall currently is. Here's where the wind field projections are hour by hour. So if you're wanting to know when we see the worst in your neighborhood, let me walk you through that here over the next 5 minutes or so. In red, those are the sustained 74+ mile/hour winds. So those are the hurricane force sustained winds. In orange, those are strong tropical storm force sustained winds over 58 miles/hour. And in yellow, we've been here for hours now. Those are sustained winds that are 40 or gusts that get a little bit higher than that. As we go from 6 o'clock to 7:30, the hurricane force sustained winds with gusts possibly at or above 100 miles/hour begin to move in here to southern Pinellas County. We're talking about Tierra Verde, St. Pete Beach, Paso Grill, down toward Fort DeSoto, and then into Manatee County, including Bradenton, Anna Maria Island, Palmetto, down to the southern apex if you're in and around the Mango area, also over towards Parrish. We've got it for you. Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, Siesta Key, Turtle Beach, Venice, Osprey, just to the north of Nokomis, maybe seeing a little bit more in the way of those stronger winds depending on how close the eye gets to you all. 7:30 is when we're going to start getting the worst of the winds and those widespread power outages unfortunately beginning to happen. Remember, if you lose power, make sure your mobile phone is charged right now. Download our ABC Action News app. You can continue to watch us streaming on your mobile phone if you lose power. Here's what it looks like as we go on through 9 o'clock. Those strong hurricane sustained winds with gusts nearing 100 or passing it are now in a very small area around the eye, but we're looking at that chance now moving into South Tampa, getting into downtown Tampa, West Shore, filling in more of Pinellas County from St. Pete north up to Lealman and getting into Largo. This is where we're looking at sustained hurricane force winds. That also moves into Waimama, Sun City Center over toward Apollo Beach, getting up to the Riverview Gibsonton area. And notice the orange colors with those strong tropical storm force winds are now all the way up through Hernando County, past Pine Island, getting up toward Homosassa here in southern Citrus County. And we're still looking at those hurricane sustained winds through Sarasota and nearly all of Manatee County. Fast forward to 11 o'clock tonight, those sustained winds are now bullseye sitting over top of Tampa Bay. So it includes Pinellas, Hillsborough, Western Polk, Northwestern Hardy, and getting into most of Manatee and northern Sarasota County. By 11 o'clock, this is when it's going to be the worst for you all. Fast forward to 1 o'clock, eastern Hillsborough County, getting into Polk County. Almost the entire Polk County area will have a chance as we go from midnight to 3 a.m., 4 a.m. to get those sustained winds at 74 miles per hour. And like Dennis said, by this point, weakening as it's moving inland, but still getting gusts that could exceed 90 miles miles per hour in these areas. And then by 3 o'clock, the system's down to a Category 1 hurricane, continuing to move over to the Space Coast, possibly moving offshore in and around Cape Canaveral. We start to see the winds getting back below tropical storm force by the time we get to about 8, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then we're finishing up with the system at that point, and hopefully not seeing a disaster out there. But unfortunately, the strongest storm to hit our area in over 100 years. The scenes aren't probably going to be pretty at all whatsoever. So here's what the rain looks like on the radar, and very important here with Futurecast, and I want to show you this too, because we talked about how this slowly transitioning to that weird extratropical thing we talked about. What happens is on the northern side, that northern eye wall, even as the system weakens, we still continue to see very, very strong winds out of it. That's through St. Pete, Tampa, over to Zephyr Hills, getting into sections of Thonona-Sassa. There's 8 o'clock. Notice that northern eye wall, that magenta color. Very, very strong winds are going to be moving in with that as we go through 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock here in Tampa, St. Pete, Brandon, Thonona-Sassa, back to Clearwater, up to Palm Harbor, and getting into Zephyr Hills, Wesley Chapel area. Then as we go to midnight tonight, there's where it shifts inland, and we still hold on to scattered rain bands as we go through 1:30, 2 o'clock into the morning. Still some gusty winds over tropical storm force at this point, and we're wrapping the system up again by 6 to 8 a.m., moving it out into the Atlantic. Sunshine returns tomorrow, and we get those temperatures back up to around 80 degrees. What the system will do behind it is bring in significantly lower humidity, also dropping temperatures, so at least for those of us that are unfortunately likely to lose power over the next few hours, and it may take days or even a couple of weeks to get power back on to the worst hit areas, we could potentially get at least slightly more tolerable air here in Florida. Now, of course, after Helene left and we had over 250,000 people without power in Pinellas County, it took almost a week of temperatures at 90, 95 degrees. We had record high temperatures into the mid-90s as well. That won't be the case with this as our restoration and cleanup works in the next 3 to 5 day period. The power crews will hopefully get things on as obviously as quickly as they can, but it looks like we'll get some lower temperatures behind this as we go into the next couple of hours. So that's what it looks like here right now. We're continuing to get the latest updates from the Hurricane Center. Let me go back to the radar just to make sure the extreme wind warning hasn't been issued. Haven't seen it issued yet, but as the eye is now beginning to approach the coast, I expect that to be Sarasota, Manatee, maybe Pinellas and Hillsborough County. This is where we would get those extreme wind warnings. Dennis, want to send it back over to you. What you got, bud?
One thing I wanted to note that you're not showing on that radar. Look at the little spin right here. That little spin. So I don't know. Did you talk about waterspouts moving on shore, Jason?
No, I did not.
Yeah, you know, that's one other thing to remember. Add it to the list, right? I mean, I hope you know you're hunkered down, you're locked into where you are, you're watching us on TV. By the way, I do want to mention this. If you lose power, you can still follow us. It's something that has happened several times in the past. We have radio partners, and I think we have a graphic actually that's out there, but we have radio, there it is, thank you. We have radio partners that are helping us simulcast in some spots of what we are doing as the storm really starts to roll in. And there they are. And it's always challenging. I know Jason and Greg, we've talked about this sometimes in the past. You know, we're used to the TV mentality, and you're like, hey, look at this over here. But people who are listening on the radio can't hear that. So we try to tailor our presentation so folks who are listening on the radio can also understand what's happening. And if you lose power, you have the ability to listen to these radio stations, or you can download our app. And downloading our app is, in my opinion, a great way to do this because, look, if you've lost power, and by the way, you should be charging your phone right now. Let's go back to me, guys. You should be charging your phone right this second and keep it charged. And obviously, because if you lose power, that's your lifeline. So if you lose power, you can still watch us. So all you do is go either on the App Store or Google Play and search ABC Action News. You download the app and you'll be able to watch our coverage. And trust me on this, at night, if you've lost power and the winds are howling outside and you hear trees, branches falling and things rustling around, you're gonna wanna know what's going on. So that's the way you can follow us. You download our app, and at that point, you'll be able to follow us even if your power has gone out. But I repeat, I posted a list of all the things you should do in advance. That's one you can still do, because you're probably scrolling right now, or you're probably looking and trying to get information. Have your phone plugged in, because there's gonna be some widespread power outages. And as Jason said, you know, if we get that extreme wind warning that comes through southern Pinellas or Hillsborough and in northwestern Manatee, I mean, that's an area that you are bound to get some significant power outages. So there were a lot of tornadoes on the East Coast. Still are tornado warnings over there. But there it is. Landfall, we're on 9 o'clock. So the eye crosses at about 9. But there's your center. If you were watching DPL the last few days and we showed you the models were very solid on predicting how this storm would look. Because there's your eye, kind of ragged. There's the center. All of the weather is north in terms of the rain. And Greg and I were just talking. I mean, the biggest in fact, he was saying, Dennis, it might be harder for you to get home. I live in Palm Harbor. It might be harder for you to get home. We were worried about having to bypass trees because it might be harder for you to get home because of the flooding. And we're not talking surge because they'll have an offshore flow in northern Pinellas and probably central Pinellas. We're talking rainfall, fresh water flooding. So there's your eye. There's the right side, areas of Sarasota. I mean, how close would you say this edge of this eye is to coastal Sarasota?
It's basically there.
It's like almost there. Now it's moving, this way right here. But boy, I mean, I'll tell you, there's probably some pretty solid wind going on right there from Port Charlotte up to Sarasota, and not just the flood warning. And then the heaviest rain, the squalliest weather is on the northern eye wall. And that's what's going to go on. So, tell you what, let's go on back to the anchors. We're going to continue to watch this closely. And the minute we get any kind of extreme wind warning or anything of the sort, we'll come back and let you know. And again,
Dennis,
charge your phone.
While you do that, just looking at some of the wind gusts, 69 miles per hour in St. Pete, 59 miles per hour at Sarasota Bradenton International, 61 at Albert Whitted in downtown, 58 in Venice. So just now beginning to see those stronger tropical storm force winds. There have been some changes also to the tornado watch. Most of the area is still in it. Our southern spots have been cleared out of that for now. We'll let you know if that changes, but that tornado watch that covered up everybody is now only for Polk County and then Hernando County south to Sarasota County along the coast. Ladies, take it away.
All right, Jason, thank you so much. We want to bring Wendy back in as we are coming in and out over the next few hours. Of course, we're going to be with you through the height of the storm and all throughout the evening. We do have some updates from St. Pete.
Yeah, I was just looking on Twitter. St. Pete police actually sending out a note that as Milton approaches and conditions worsen, they now say all first responder operations will be paused for the safety of our police, fire, and medical teams. They will not be able to respond to emergency calls until it is safe to operate. So, that's why it's so important to hunker down and stay in place. Don't go anywhere. Don't get in your car. Don't try to drive anywhere to look at whatever damage has already been done. Please stay wherever you are.
It's interesting because in Helene, winds never got to the point where first responders couldn't get out. They are expecting, obviously, the winds to get higher, and that's one of the reasons why they're putting out that warning. Once they hit 45 miles per hour, it's unsafe for them to go out to rescue.
And the storm surge is also an issue as well, which was the deal with Helene. They just, they couldn't get in.
Now, can you imagine navigating the debris? We also have another quick update from St. Pete as well. They're putting out all of these right now. The city of St. Pete said that they made the difficult decision to turn off the water at the northeast sewage treatment plant and the southwest sewer treatment plant. This is to protect the plants as that storm surge comes in. So now they're asking you to limit water. That basically means if you were in those areas, and they put out a map, hopefully we can get that to you either online or later on the show. But what they're saying is that don't flush the toilet. It might not even flush. Your water is going to be turned off. This is in the area where they think the storm surge is going to be the worst. They did want to note out that the water station serving Odessa will stay online, but they just made that difficult decision, again, to turn off water ahead of time because that storm surge is going to inundate St. Pete.
And many of the barrier islands had already done that. We're talking, Treasure
absolutely.
Island, Anna Maria Island, Davis Island, all those have already turned off the water because of that specific issue. So we do want to take a live look now at Bradenton. This is near the coastline. You can see, obviously, the wind picking up, the storm coming in, the waves obviously kicking up as well. But this is near Bradenton, near the coastline, of course, as we know, could be very close to ground zero.
Manatee County, 10,000 people evacuating there. So they're taking the warning there. We're also getting new video from Hurricane Milton as it continues to approach our Gulf Coast. This is also in Bradenton. The Bradenton Police Department actually put this out, and you can see the flooding right here along Riverside Boulevard right there, and obviously officers are there to make sure that drivers aren't going through, and we're starting to see that water come through, and this is just the beginning of what's going to be a very long night, Wendy.
Of course, and this is a live look at one of the bridges. It's the Dick Meisner Bridge, FDOT camera here showing what's going on in that area leading up to the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. It's the northernmost bridge in lower Tampa Bay. As you can see, you almost can't see what's going on because obviously of the wind and the storm and the waves kicking up onto the road. And we should mention that, of course, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge shut down at 11:30 this morning, and then all the other bridges followed suit. The Howard Franklin, Courtney Campbell, all the rest. So it's just not, and it's not good, obviously, to go out driving, more or less get on any bridge, especially once those winds kick up to 45 miles per hour or over, and they're well over that now. So again, this is just a live look to give you an idea of just how bad it is out there.
Also, like a quick reminder, I think at 1:40 we heard a lot of the bridges were closed, except it was just the westbound side of Gandy Bridge and the westbound Courtney Campbell. No word yet on the eastbound sides. I could imagine they'll be closing soon if they're not already closed.
Yeah, I think they just haven't put out the notice.
Yeah, and
I can't imagine that they're still allowing folks to drive on those bridges.
You don't want to be on the bridges. Of course. All right, let's go ahead and go downtown to downtown Sarasota, where we actually will obviously feel the storm surge and the high winds there from Hurricane Milton. And that's where we find our Chad Mills. I see they're wiping off that camera because the rain's already coming through there.
Yeah, and every time we take his live shot, it's got wind and rain, and he's always in the elements. So it doesn't look like anything has gotten any better. I know he can't hear us, but Chad, take it away.
Guys, here in Sarasota, storm surge remains the big threat, but we are also getting some decent gusts of wind right now. We're also getting a heck of a lot of rain. And to illustrate my point, look down at these boats. These are a collection of john boats and dinghies tied up here at this marina, the Marina Jack, right on Sarasota Bay. You can see they are bathtubs right now. It's clear waters, it's rainwater. There have been no waves lapping over the side of them. This is all rain from just the past several hours. But again, storm surge is the big concern here across Sarasota County. And you guys have a better vantage than I do, so you can probably see better than I can. But look across this little finger of the bay at those yellow houses over there. They're pretty close to the water. They're not too far off of their seawalls, but I can't tell, but it sure looks like the waves are just barely starting to go over the seawall there. This area obviously felt such severe impacts from Hurricane Helene not even 2 weeks ago. Now they're bracing for this hit of perhaps 8 to 12 feet of storm surge, worst case scenario here in Sarasota County. I was talking to someone just a few minutes ago who's worked at this marina since he was 18 years old. He said the water is already high and he can only imagine what 8 to 12 feet of storm surge would do to this marina. You know, these docks are pretty solid. I'm standing on a concrete dock and it floats, so it goes up the pillar that it's attached to. But if we were to get 10 to 12 feet of storm surge here, it would probably dislodge from the pillars that it's attached to. So that is the fear here in Sarasota. And you look over there, that's downtown Sarasota, to give you some perspective about where we are. Just driving through a little while ago, kind of like a ghost town there in downtown Sarasota. You have some people staying in the big high-rise hotels who evacuated from the barrier islands like Bird Key, St. Armand Circle, Lido Key, Siesta Key, but by and large, people did heed the evacuation orders that Sarasota County put out. You know, the conditions have really deteriorated here over the past 2 hours or so, just in terms of wind and rain. You see those boats that are lined up here in the marina, they are starting to wobble back and forth a little bit. You might be able to see some of the palm fronds in the background behind them. They are being pushed by the wind as well. But again, the big threat here is storm surge. According to the city of Sarasota, the worst of the storm surge will come in overnight, even after Milton makes landfall. So it could give people some false sense of security. Once the storm passes, they may not see those huge numbers yet, but could come in pretty quickly after that. So something to be mindful of here in Sarasota County as they prepare for storm surge. You know, wind will still be a factor, rain a factor, perhaps some freshwater flooding in spots that are already so saturated from all the rain we've received over the past couple of months. But by and large, that is expected to be the story here in Sarasota County, the storm surge. You know, just driving out some of those areas that were hit so bad by Helene not even 2 weeks ago. There are still huge piles of debris, some taller than I am, some, you know, twice as tall as I am. And you can only imagine and the Gulf of Mexico pushes across those barrier islands like Lido Key, where all of that debris will end up. I can only imagine it will take quite a while to clear all of that debris before people can get out to those islands and assess any damage. The important thing right now is to stay indoors. If you didn't evacuate for any reason, City of Sarasota, Sarasota County, urging people to stay inside at this point as this area braces for the impact of Hurricane Milton. Send things back to you guys in the studio for now.
If you notice again, Chad's photographer is up high, so they do have a safe place to get. Chad, be safe there in Sarasota. Actually, they just tweeted out not too long ago, 8,600 people evacuated in Sarasota as well. So we know a lot of people heeded the warnings, especially after Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, I mean, I think once you've gone through a hurricane like Helene, I think a lot of folks who didn't evacuate said, I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing this again. I'm not sticking around. And it's good that they didn't, because I think as we're seeing now, it's the wind and the storm surge that's going to be very dangerous with this storm.
We were here together 13 days ago, not even 2 weeks ago for Helene. It's just, difficult to know what might be coming. But, we're still going to be here through you. We have our crews all over the Gulf Coast. Let's go ahead and go down now to the Palma Vista neighborhood in Bradenton, where they are gearing up to ride out the storm down.
Yeah, certainly could be near ground zero. Our own ABC Action News anchor, Paula Grown, joining us live out there. Paul, I know the weather conditions are starting to deteriorate quickly. It looks like you could barely hear us, because I could see you put your hand on your ear trying to make sure that, but take it away. What's it look like now?
Well, this is the time where your head is on a swivel, because yes, the wind is now gusting at 60 mile an hour plus, and I'm paying extra close attention to the tree that's behind the house where we're reporting live from here in Bradenton, in this residential neighborhood that's sort of referred to around here as Palma Vista. We're about 3 miles south of the Manatee River, just a couple of miles inland from the Intercoastal, and a couple of miles or a few miles south of the greater Tampa Bay area, that south end of the bay. And we're a couple of miles north of IMG. You may be familiar, but this residential neighborhood, people decided to stay here for the most part. We talked to some folks that live in that house. They're from Boston. They didn't board up, they're staying. A lot of people did board up their homes, and we're told a lot of people did decide to stay. Now, essentially, this area is kind of like, as the wind is really starting to gust here, kind of like I would describe it as almost like a peninsula, because you're surrounded by the Manatee River on the north end, the Intercoastal on the west end. But this area here, listed at around 22 feet of elevation, that storm surge at 9 to 13, potentially 9 to 13 feet, depending on that exact last-minute track of Hurricane Milton. So you could have streets, this essentially could be an island, hopefully, if it holds without the storm surge, of dryness around streets that are going to be likely flooded out. The trees behind me really starting to sing with the wind coming through, and it's coming, the wind, from the southeast direction, and it will eventually, as the hurricane rotates, switch and completely come from the opposite direction, from the northwest. Right now, the home that we're in, where we're set up and our operations are here to go live, is blocking some of that wind, but we've got power lines above ground power lines, there's a good one, that are waving in the wind right now, and it's, right now we have power. Everyone here has power. You can see the lights are on, but it's a question of how much longer will that hold as the trees are swaying and the power lines are swaying as well. And I just wanted to give you a 180 perspective here and walk you this way, because the direction of the wind really gives you a perspective of what is happening in this neighborhood right now. This row of homes is blocking the wind, so you don't really see much of the impacts over here. But once it wraps back around, the wind's going to be coming from this direction. And even with that, we're starting to see wind spraying the rain everywhere. And I will say the rain has been steady, and it has been deep in the sense that it has been drenching. We just covered, as you know, Hurricane Helene. We were in Tallahassee, and it wasn't until the last part of the storm that we got the heavy drenching rain. We're getting the heavy buckets of rain early with Hurricane Milton, and we're now getting the wind. That's the strongest gust of wind that we've seen so far right now. That's the strongest that I've experienced since being out here. And yeah, it's starting to, Tim, you're telling me to get, okay, got it. I wear contacts during hurricanes because it's pointless to wear glasses and I don't even like to wear goggles. My wife would probably tell me that that's not a good idea, but I like to see what's happening, and this is the best way I can see it. The leaves are really starting to blow off this big oak tree behind this house. So you got a lot going on right now. It's all the elements starting to come together, as you heard meteorologist Jason Adams explain earlier, the timing as he walked you through neighborhood by neighborhood and that inner eye wall, the eye wall of the storm, and when are you going to start feeling the impacts. And it was that 7:30 hour that we're really going to start feeling potentially hurricane force winds here, is where we're going to start feeling it, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30 in the Bradenton area. So that's where we are right now. This is the strongest wind that we've experienced so far, and the rain has been anything but on and off. It has been absolutely steady, and so we're talking about that now. I know there's several factors to this hurricane, but you talk about the rain and the accumulation of that. You talk about the storm surge and the question of where and when is it going to be at its highest. And then, of course, you talk about the wind. And it's all determining, really determines, or really depends on your exact location when it comes to the wind. So we'll keep going at it here, but this is the strongest stuff that we've seen so far being out here right now. Guys, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Paul, I just think that we just got to brace for the worst of it as you're out there. You talked to folks, you said some folks have boarded up the windows out there, but some folks haven't.
Right, and some, question whether they should. Gigi and Carl over here, real sweet couple. He was honest. He said, look, maybe I should have boarded up the windows. But right now, their house is looking good. And hopefully they're in there watching us. They're the nicest people. I hope it stays the way it is right now for them. They're looking good. But again, when the wind changes direction, the storm almost becomes a new kind of storm because it just, everything changes. But I would say, most now, I don't want to put a number on it, but it's probably 50% of the homes are boarded up. I mean, you see behind me, beyond those trees, they did aluminum shutters there. So they boarded up in homes that we see along the way. So people, they took the storm seriously, but the question of whether you leave, do you evacuate, Carl was telling me, look, okay, so let's say I evacuate. Okay, then what? Where am I going to go? What am I going to find when I get there? And then will I be able to get back? And I've talked to a lot of people, including my own family in Plant City, and they're helping other family members. So what, does one family go, but the other family members stay? I mean, and you have people that have special needs. So, the decision to stay or go, it's a personal choice, and it can get tricky if you're trying to get back in. So I think a lot of people, they took the precautions in terms of boarding up, but I think a lot of people stayed. So, this tree behind us, this debris starting to come off of it, and just got to be careful here. But so that's where we are right now. We're just waiting and watching, just like you guys are.
Yeah, all right. Well, Paul,
I do want to mention, if I can, I do want to mention Bradenton Police Department put out that that the Manatee River, it appears, has already overreached its bank. So that's a real concern, but expected. That's what we were expecting.
Yeah, that's more concerning too. Paul, thank you. I think, like you mentioned, probably in another hour, things will increase and the weather will get even worse. We'll check back with you in just a little bit. Maybe you should get to a safer location if you think that tree might be coming down too. So we'll check back in with you in just a bit.
What's good to not see is all those debris piles behind him, like in so many other neighborhoods that we know. And that when you see just how strong those winds are in that tree behind him, that was the concern for all the debris. And I know that was the mission, to get as much of it picked up. So happily he's not in a neighborhood where you have those giant piles. All right, let's go now down to south in Sarasota.
Yeah, ABC Action News reporter Julie Solomon joining us live from there. Julie, I know your mom lives down there. I know you have friends down there. Did you get the impression that they evacuated or at least hunkered down to prepare for Milton?
Yeah, my mom lives in an evacuation zone B, so obviously she's taking precautions. I have childhood friends, their parents are here, they've never evacuated pretty much in their entire life. But they also left and moved more inland to some of the other counties and got out of Sarasota. So I still have, a ton of friends as well as family in Sarasota. I'm not far from Sarasota High School, which is where I graduated high school. We're about a mile from Sarasota High. We're along Novus Street. We're in a backyard here at one of the homes. These trees and branches and palms have been waving back and forth. We're keeping our eye on a shed that seems to be shifting as the winds pick up. But this is some of the nastiest weather that we've seen here today. Sarasota County at 5:15 put out an alert on people's phones. We got, a shelter-in-place alert. Sarasota County then followed up on their social media accounts, urging people now is the time to shelter in place. Do not go on the roads. The only people on the roads should be first responders. So they're telling people to just shelter in place at this point because the roads are no longer safe. They also said they do have reports of flooding. They didn't give specific locations, but they say they are getting some reports of that. They also, at Riverview High School, it's one of the main high schools here, they have National Guard soldiers that are stationed there to respond after Hurricane Helene. So they're all stationed there getting ready for this as we see some of the nasty weather move in. I'm going to send it back to you.
Thank you so much, Julie. Julie, thank you. Heading into Pinellas County, we're seeing some strong wind and heavy rain in Clearwater right now, which was already hit very hard after Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, that's where you find ABC Action News reporter Lydia Vasquez. Lydia, tell us how conditions are looking now. And actually, the first thing I did in looking at your shot is to see if there's debris behind you right now. But go ahead and take us through what the conditions look like.
Yeah, we know that debris has been a major concern for Pinellas County, Clearwater especially. This has been a slow burn. Conditions are really starting to deteriorate here where we are. We're off US 19, a couple of miles west, off Nursery Road, a couple of miles west of US 19. And so we've been here since 6 a.m. This rain has not let up. So I'm concerned about two things where we are right now. The rainfall totals, they're starting to accumulate. This home that we're in here, I'm not sure we can get too far, but it's flooding the entire front yard here. This grass quickly getting underwater here. The second concern we have in Clearwater, guys, we've seen what was left behind from Hurricane Helene. We were just here yesterday talking to folks who say they are worried that the leftover debris are going to turn into flying projectiles, missiles, have you. Where we're at right now, there's no trash or people's couches and beds that we've seen all throughout Clearwater, but there is debris. There are branches there. And again, my concern right now with the wind is we are starting to see and feel that wind. And you can hear it too. Right now we might be getting the outer band, but we've been out here for the past couple of hours and it's starting to roar. It's making those noises that may have you a little concerned if you're sitting inside your home. So I've already seen that wind kind of whip around in this rain, picking up that debris with it and tossing it across the street. And so we're standing out here about 10 minutes ago, and we heard a pop and saw a couple of flashes. We're not too sure what that was across the street there. So that is just my concern here with some of the debris flying around and hitting the homes here. Unfortunately, most of the homes in this neighborhood that we're in, off Nursery Road, just west of US 19, they are not boarded up. The good thing today, we spoke with the police chief of Clearwater, and he said he drove around town, and for the most part, it looked like people have evacuated, but we were talking with neighbors just down a couple of houses down, and they're staying. The rain here, again, has not let up. We've been here since 6 a.m. It hasn't stopped, and so that's a big concern with the localized flooding here, and you can start to see it along the sidewalk, but also that wind. Right now, it is a little bit calmer. Literally just 10 minutes ago, we were going indoors because of this debris here, kind of just whipping around, and you can see that wind whip the rain straight across these homes here. So that's something that we're going to continue to keep our eye on. I just checked the backyard of this home as well on the side of the house. It's pretty flooded, and I'm not seeing sandbags in the neighborhood that we're in here, again off Nursery Road. I will say though that again, what the police chief told us earlier, that when he was driving across Clearwater, for the most part, it looked like people have evacuated, but we're not out of the woods here yet. We're looking at wind gusts right now up to 55 miles an hour, and we're kind of just getting started here. Again, this has been a slow burn. Being here since 6 a.m., the rain just hasn't stopped. We're starting to see some localized flooding even a couple of hours ago just getting here, but It is a bit concerning when we start to get that gust of wind, pick up some of the debris around us. Brad, our photojournalist, I'm not sure if you can even see this good, but this flagpole swaying here and there. I'm not sure how sturdy that is. Obviously, we'll stay away from that, and we're pretty secure inside the home that we're in. But the debris has been the #1 concern for a lot of folks here in Clearwater, and right now it's coming and going. We're getting some of those bands, the gusts again up to 55 mile an hour, but it could get stronger where we are. And in this neighborhood that we're in, we're not seeing the couches and all the people's belongings right now where we're at, but that's still out there. We know that's the cruel reality that a lot of people are facing right now off the heels of the Helene and not being able to clean that debris out. Here, I can tell you, I've seen some of the debris, the branches and the trees getting whipped around in those gusts and getting tossed across the street. So we'll continue to keep our eye on the conditions here as that rain, again, not only has it not let up, it just continues to slowly increase. The same thing with the wind as well. But we'll be here all night and we'll continue to bring you the latest. Again, unfortunately, not a lot of people here have sandbags or are boarding up for the most part. Not sure if you saw that debris coming down here, but where we are pretty safe. Inside is a bit elevated, and I'm hoping that's the case for the other homes in this area. Guys?
Lydia, I do have a question for you. I can't help but notice those raindrops look like golf ball size drops. Is it painful? Because it looks like it's much heavier than just a normal rain.
You know, you are kind of standing right below the roof here, so it's kind of coming a little bit heavier right in front of the camera. Where I'm at is kind of just swifting to the side to us. No, we're not getting pecked too hard with the rain. It's just, you know, we've been here since 6 a.m. and it has not stopped raining.
So you're pretty
the rainfall
soaked.
totals, I'll be interested to see what we get here, and that's my concern. Yeah, we're pretty soaked, and I literally got in front of the camera when it was my turn to get in front of the camera. So our front yard here in the home that we're in is getting pretty flooded. So, you know, this is starting to accumulate here. But I'm just concerned for the residents here, you know, the people that live here, and, you know, they're somewhat more inland here in Clearwater versus Clearwater Beach where we were yesterday. We were there yesterday. Debris still lining the streets there. And so I know no one's kind of let their guard down here, but I still feel for the people here. And, you know, with as much rain as we're getting already today, and with some of the debris that we are watching with our own eyes kind of get whirling around here and pushed across the street. So, yeah, we are just hoping that everyone is continuing to take the precautions. And right now, we just have to hunker down and stay safe.
All right, and you do that. Thank you, Lydia. I have to mention, too, you know, of course, because of Helene, the ground is so saturated that no wonder they're already flooding, as you saw in that neighborhood, that, you know, there's nowhere for the water to go.
And you saw the branches kind of falling down behind her, some of the debris there. What's interesting is that Debbie was a rain event.
Yes.
A lot of rain. We saw a lot of flooding.
And I feel like that was so long ago because that was the first storm, right? I mean, the first major storm that hit our area.
It has been a season. Then Helene was a storm surge event, right? And now we're adding the wind to this. So it might feel like we might be a little bit more prepared for this, but it's been a very difficult season for us, and that's probably why we saw so many people take that evacuation warning. And that's exactly what you saw in Lydia's live shot. The rain, the wind, and that's now part of it.
Yeah, well, and I know so many folks who didn't evacuate during Helene, and they said, and they were there while their home filled with water, 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, you know, and it's, you don't go through that again. You're like, I'm out, like I'm not gonna, because it's very traumatic to be in a home while the water is rising. And I've been in a flood before. I know what it feels like. It's pretty awful. So I hope that they did heed the warning.
It's like stressful and tiring. And I bet you're listening to us and you're just like, you're over it, even though we got a really long night to go.
Right.
And we just thank you that you're watching us so we can keep you informed and kind of get you through it.
Right. And staying safe where you are.
Yeah.
So we want to turn now our coverage into Hillsborough County, which we know our ABC Action News reporter JJ Burton has been there. He's been live in Riverview. It looks like you're still in the same, pretty much the same spot. Did you move neighborhoods?
Same spot, same neighborhood. We are in the Boyette neighborhood, Dayton Boyette Springs here in Riverview. We're right by our house. We're not leaving. We're being safe out here. But the wind is still a big issue here. And And we're listening to Lydia talking, they have like the flooding there as well as the wind. The wind is the main issue here. And when it's about the way, we can see there's some debris from the trees have already come down on our driveway here. And you can see some of the stuff down here, but then also the wind that keeps blowing the trees on and off. Like you can hear it right now and you can see it. If we look up there, some of these sticks and leaves and stuff are falling onto the roof. And that, again, the major concern for the people in this neighborhood. Most of the people all did stay. They boarded up. Some of them didn't. Some of them did. Most of them did. They have the bags, the plywood and stuff up. They have also the paper up over the doors and things like that. But they're staying and they're hunkering down. But again, worrying about the wind. Walking through the neighborhood, there's nobody outside. But we did run into some peacocks that people thought were dogs, and they were out. Some people were looking for them, but they're peacocks, and they're running around in the neighborhood, and they seem to be cool. They seem to be all right. Hopefully, they're all right. There's some over in this front yard over there. I talked to one guy earlier, and he was out putting up some more wood, and he had the garage door up, and then that wind started blowing. They closed that garage door again. And another guy, neighbor here we talked to, he's here with his wife, his son, and their dogs, and they're in, all boarded up. They have everything. They brought everything in, and if things get dicey, they all know to go to their hallways and close all the exterior doors and just go to the hallways and stay there. And so again, people out here just being safe, doing what they can, and staying inside in this neighborhood. There's no one out but us, but we're only out telling you what the weather is like, and then as soon as we're done, we go back inside. I'm not just sitting out here in the rain getting wet. But if you guys have any questions for me out in this neighborhood, anything you want to ask that I can answer, please. What is it?
JJ, I don't know if you've been out talking to folks, but I know that Hillsborough County might be getting the worst of this as we're watching the track. Were they hoping for the best and prepared for the worst? What have the folks in the neighborhood been talking about now that we know Hillsborough County is really the target?
I've been talking to folks all day in this neighborhood, knocking on doors, just talking to them, and again, hoping for the best, preparing for the worst. And we do see that track, now it looks like it could be moving right over us. And what was interesting is, with Helene out in Clearwater, the barrier islands, they have all the debris that's out there. Here, there's no debris. You don't see, they didn't get hit with that much because we didn't get that here. So that's another worry for them because, the wind, these trees that are coming down, and what might that bring since we're going to probably get what looks like it could be right over us and we get the worst of it in this neighborhood. So they're concerned about that, but they don't have that debris here. So that is a good thing they're saying. But again, they are prepared and they are worried. But a lot of people, like Paul was saying, I talked to some people and asked why they didn't leave. And the question is like, where am I going to go? This guy across the street here, his son's family, they came to stay with them because they live in St. Pete, but they live right on the water. And his son and them, so they're worried about that. So they came there. So the family's coming to them. So where are they going to go? This guy right here, I talked to him. They have a house full of people as well, family coming to them. So they're staying here again, hoping for the best, but they are concerned because it looks like that storm or the bulk of it might be coming right under us.
All right, JJ, be safe there again, live in Hillsborough County in the Riverview area of Hillsborough County tonight. Thank you so much.
And I just wanted to make a comment because the whole weather team was poking fun at me calling it golf ball size rain, especially Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips. Listen, I grew up in Cleveland and there was golf ball size hail.
We can get that.
And I knew it couldn't
be
hail because it's way too warm out there. So I was aware that it wasn't real hail. But I'll tell you, from the look of the camera, it looked like hail, which of course then I said was raindrops. But so Dennis wants to make t-shirts. We'll see if we can make that.
Yeah, I mean, when Greg and I both heard you say that, I literally got in my chair and I rolled back to look at this video because I've never seen golf ball size
she mentioned, you're right, yeah, it was coming off the roof. She wasn't even standing in it, but that's the way it looked. The magic of a lens, right, was fascinating. At any rate, she's fine, and it wasn't hail either. It was just some heavy rain coming from the roof of a house. Anyway, staying in Hillsborough County now, we want to get to Scripps News reporter Lillian Donahue. She's in Tampa on our ABC Action News parking garage across from Raymond James Stadium.
And Lillian, all of us are leaning in because we're in studio wanting to know what is it like right outside. Go ahead and tell us about the conditions.
Yeah, well, right now we're on the second level of the parking garage, and we've been hearing that wind howling through as it's been hitting not only our building, but around the area. Right now, we're in a little bit of a lull. This is the nicest I've seen it in the past hour, to be honest. Usually it's harder to see with a little bit lower visibility, but right now it looks decent. But as of course we all know that those bands come and go. It's the wave of the band, right? So we're expecting, of course, those winds to pick back up. Plenty of pooling along the water here, especially along this route next to Raymond James Stadium. The good thing though, we've been here for a few hours just kind of monitoring the situation out here, and there really haven't been many cars, and that's a really good situation. That means that people are taking this seriously. For those who have been driving through, we've seen emergency crews have been kind of in the area, and the reason for that here at Raymond James Stadium, we know that there are many rescue crews that are currently riding out the storm here, ready, on standby, ready to go. You know, the whole Tampa Bay area taking this extremely seriously, and the police department really asking folks to keep emergency lines clear. They're asking people to, instead of call 911 for down power lines or minor damage or flooding, to call their non-emergency number for those things. However, if it is a life-threatening, right now, immediate situation, that's when they say to call 911. But, you know, behind us, obviously folks that are hunkering down across the street as well, but ready to help. We've been seeing kind of that slow burn of the wind coming in, the rain coming in. Quite nice right now, but we know that that's going to be making its way back to this area. I went up to our third floor here, and that rain, you know, obviously the very top has been coming through and seeping through the cracks, already making kind of a waterfall in the parking garage here. So I'm glad that we're definitely elevated. I'm glad we're behind concrete and staying safe like that. Back to you guys.
All right, Lillian, thank you. We want to go now to Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips, who's going to give us the latest on what's out there.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and go through the process. Right now, there's actually almost what looks like a double eye wall rather. And you've got one that's moving into Sarasota right now, but the eye itself is only about 12 miles wide. So you can kind of see the way that it's moving. I mean, it's going to continue to move off to the northeast. So, you know, somewhere Manatee, Sarasota, in that general ballpark, maybe as far north as northern Manatee. But overall, the forecast in terms of what we're experiencing right now, the rain, as Greg and Jason have been saying, the rain is the big story right now. The other stories will be changing. The surge will be a massive story. The wind in a very small area will also be a very big story. And we're going to tackle one at a time. Again, if you're home right now, just kind of hanging out, just hunker down, waiting for the power to go. We have had reports of power outages. Wendy, what's the last power outage check? If you guys check on that and see what you got.
And I can tell you for sure, I've got it, Nadine.
Yeah, go for it.
TECO they did have over 8,000. Wow, it's now 30,000. Oh, almost 31,000, because 30,753. We've got Duke already way up, 44,000.
Yeah.
For Duke, yeah. FPL not as many because they have a smaller coverage area, but yeah, that's substantial, and we know it's only going to increase, right?
It is, yeah. I mean, by far the worst is yet to come. I mean, and we're not saying that other than this is just to prepare you, and unfortunately it's happening at night, so you are going to see a lot of power outages. And I repeat, charge your phone now while you still have power. Download our app. You can watch our broadcast in the overnight. That is a very comforting thing to know what's happening. When you can't see anything, it's dark out and the wind is howling and tree branches and sometimes trees are falling and you're not sure where or how long. So it's a really good idea to keep your phone charged as long as you can before the power goes out. So again, we're expecting landfall somewhere between 9:30 in that ballpark. And by definition, landfall is when the center of the eye, not the leading edge, the center of the eye crosses land. And wherever that occurs, that is where we have landfall. So in terms of the current conditions, it's all about the rain, not the surge. Although we are getting a lot of reports of surge in Naples. We're getting a lot of reports of surge in Fort Myers. It's starting south and it will work north. And it will do so over the next few hours. But we have flash flood warnings for Pasco and Pinellas County until 6:45. Look, it has just been raining crazy for the last 5 or 6 hours. And we'll show you some of those numbers in a minute. But overall, we're talking about significant flooding because of rain. Nothing to do with surge. That will come later. This is a 3-part event, if you will. First, we've had the rain, all right? Then we have the wind that comes on shore. And then lastly, unfortunately, the largest event will be the surge. Here are those rainfall totals that I talked about. This is in the last 24 hours, but honestly, it's probably like in the last 7 or 8 hours. They've had nearly 9 inches of rain in southern Pinellas County. They've had, most of Pinellas has seen between 6 and 9 inches of rain. Most of western Hernando County, or rather Manatee County, has had 7 to 8 inches of rain. Sarasota has had 7.5 inches of rain. Pasco County lower with purple colors, but still it's coming down, and then inland areas less. So you've still got all of that rain coming in with the storm itself. There it is. That is all going to move on shore. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that some areas are going to pick up 18 inches of rain before this moves on through. And when I say some areas, it's probably Pinellas County getting a lot of the heaviest rain. What about the wind? The wind will be strongest right around the eye, north and east of where that eye crosses. There's going to be a small area of wind that we likely will see an extreme wind warning. Now, what does that mean? I remember we had one in Irma in Polk County. Bartow had one. It was about 12:30 at night. It lasted for about an hour. And we had one of our reporters actually in a bunker, I remember them saying, and they could not even open the door because the wind was blowing so hard. It's a very small area, but it's an area that will bring incredibly high winds, 115 miles an hour or greater. Now, the storm is weakening. We have winds of 120. It is a possibility that when this makes landfall, it's Cat 2. That, while it's just a number, there is a monstrous difference in terms of damage from 110 to 140 or 145. Just a massive amount of difference. So if we can continue to see weakening up for the next few hours, there's a legitimate chance we could be looking at a Cat 2 hurricane or a very minimal Cat 3 at landfall. So that would be tremendous. Unfortunately, that has nothing to do with the surge. All right, here are the current wind gusts. We have hurricane force wind gusts right now in Venice, 74 mile an hour wind gusts. We have 61 mile an hour wind gusts in St. Pete. We are not seeing sustained hurricane force winds yet. What does that mean? What's a sustained versus a gust? Sustained is 60 seconds steady of wind. We just got is that extreme wind alert?
Yeah.
Yep, figured. So
Wind
tell it.
warning.
What is it?
A wind warning? Extreme wind warning.
Extreme wind warning.
You
That's
said
what
it
I
was coming.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back. I'm going to move back here, and let's just go back and see if it pops up. Actually, I think we actually have to add that to the palette. Jason, you already did. Oh, there it is. Yeah, you can go ahead and zoom into it. So, yeah, this is what we were talking about. You know, we knew it was going to come, and we were literally just talking about it. An extreme wind warning is winds of 115 miles an hour. So the Weather Service has issued the extreme wind warning through 9:30. Now, let me tell you, this is different from a tornado warning. A tornado warning means it's happening right then. All right, you see a tornado. Clearly, what we have here is what they believe. And by the way, so it shows the entire area as part of the extreme wind warning. It will not be the entire area. It will be a section of that area as that wind comes through. This is as landfall occurs. And this is what this storm is going to do. Remember, hurricane force winds only extend 35 miles out. So it's a rather small wind field in hurricane winds. And of those 35, I would say 80% are probably 70 to 75 mile an hour, 70, 80 mile an hour winds in that ballpark. They're on the low side of the scale. But right at the eye and on the right side of it, when it comes ashore, wherever, and the reason there's still a large area here, well, one of the reasons is because there's such a massive area of squally weather in the northern eye wall. There's not 150 mile an hour winds there, but there certainly are very, very strong winds that could go 90 to 100. So what I think we'll end up seeing, and Jason, you can follow up on this as well. Yeah. I think what we're going to end up seeing is a rather small area. This is a number we've been throwing around 3 or 4 days, but a 5 to 7 mile area of extreme winds. And we've been describing it that for days, and now we have an extreme wind warning. So that's usually how this plays out with a situation like this. So overall, if you look at the wind field, you're going to say, well, it's not that bad. But in this small area, it's going to be. And for lack of a better description, you can liken it to maybe a 5-mile wide EF1 tornado. I know that's kind of a scary thought, obviously, but this is about the most severe warning that you will get in our area. Would you not agree with that? An extreme wind warning for the short-term forecast, I would say, is the most extreme or the highest or the most severe weather phenomenon you'd get. So when we see this until 9:30 for the next 3 hours, that means the eye will cross. Some of these bands will have extreme wind too, but I would be more inclined to think they're going to be on the lower side. I don't think we're going to, I would be surprised, put it that way, if we have a band of 115-mile-an-hour wind gusts. I would not be the least bit surprised if we see that near the eye, where we're already getting reports of sustained of 120 miles an hour. So Jason, what do you think about
Yeah, so we're looking at what they're saying in their discussion with this warning. At 6:35, National Weather Service Doppler radar indicated extreme winds associated with the eye wall of Hurricane Milton moving onshore along a line extending from South Bradenton to southwest of Anna Maria, about 52 miles south of there to St. Armand Circle. So we're talking about specifically right now Manatee and Sarasota counties as the western or eastern eye wall is beginning to move closer and closer to these areas. Something that we've been talking about for days now is that the northern eye wall, clearly why Pinellas and Hillsborough County was put in this, is holding a lot of extreme winds. I'm going to get this back over to Dennis here in just a second, but I do want to pull this up, Dennis, and take a look inside the eye wall. This is what, if you could step off the camera for just a second, that'll let me start to control it again. There we go. So this is what we're looking at here. And this is basically what the direction the wind is moving. So it's kind of sloppy colors, but this tells us a bunch of things. So where the eye wall is about to move onshore, radar's picking up 114-mile-per-hour winds, but that's several thousand feet up. Down to the surface, maybe 100. Maybe 90, like Dennis was saying. The northern eye wall, though, which is not where the landfall will be, this is what's going to be moving into Pinellas, Manatee, Hillsborough County, has winds that are even higher than that. We're querying it at 116 miles per hour. I've seen it as high as 124 miles per hour. So 110, 115, 120. When you extrapolate that down to the surface, where of course we are, you can lower these winds by about 20 miles per hour from what you're seeing here. So clearly the eye wall is showing that winds that could be potentially up to 100, 115 miles per hour. We'll get the 7 o'clock advisory in from the National Hurricane Center here soon with an update on what the winds currently are. But there you can see that query just popped up 128. So Dennis, down surface-wise, that would run roughly 110 to 115. So that's what they're looking at now. Sarasota initially, Manatee County over the next hour, and then that continuing north up to Pinellas and Hillsborough County too.
And you know, you can make the argument, once this goes through, that's the worst of this storm.
Yeah.
I mean, that will be it in terms of the wind. But then we go to the next phase, which is the surge. So if you're just tuning in, where you been? Extreme wind warning till 9:30. As Jason just said, showed it perfectly. Winds already offshore of 100 to 110 miles an hour, and they will be moving onshore as Milton also moves onshore. So the eye, very ragged. South of the eye, there's no weather going on. I mean, there's some wind, but we've been saying for days, if you live in Hardee County and this passes through, you might very well see stars and you're not even in the eye, you're on the southern flank. And by the way, a lot of the Bay Area is going to be in the eye of this. And that is quite an experience where you go from the eye wall, where you have very, very heavy winds, and within a matter of a minute or two, the winds go calm and you're in the eye. And very often, not saying to do this, but very often people run outside to see what it's like to be in the eye of a hurricane. Again, I'm not saying to do that, because what happens is on the other side, although that being said, the other side will be much weaker because this is literally being cut in half. As Jason was talking about, it's quickly turning into what would be called a hybrid or a subtropical system. It doesn't have the look or the characteristics of a tropical system, which is a warm core system, as opposed to a winter storm, a nor'easter, right? And a nor'easter, think about it, a nor'easter has winds that expand out much, much farther. The winds 150 miles with a nor'easter are every bit as strong as the winds near the surface. It's more uniform. A hurricane, most of the winds are right near the surface, right there, right? Right there. But in this one, it's a little different, where we've got that really solid band of wind and rain in the northern eye wall. And while that is not the eye, And how many miles, Jason? Maybe 20 miles from the eye wall, that northern band, something like that? Yeah. So, I mean, maybe 20 miles to the north, you're going to have winds every bit as strong, if not stronger, than right at the eye wall. And I can't say that I can ever remember that happening before. I mean, it's a very, very unique situation. So there it is. Landfall occurring in the next few hours. When landfall occurs is when you will have this extreme wind. So let me be clear about something, guys, all right? And we're going to treat this almost like a tornado warning, because in a sense it is, right? If you live in Pinellas County, especially the southern half, but we'll pinpoint it as it gets closer. If you live in Hillsborough County, if you live in Manatee and Sarasota, you are going to have an area of winds that are equivalent to an EF1 tornado come through. The difference with this is it's going to last longer than an EF1 tornado. It might last 30 seconds. This could last significantly longer. So when you get to that point, you want to get away from your windows. If you have them boarded up, it's okay. But if you don't have your windows boarded up, you want to be in an interior part of your home. You want to be on the lowest floor. And if it gets bad enough, you'll go just like in a tornado in a closet or in a bathroom. I mean, we're not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because the reality of an extreme wind warning is about as strong as it gets, certainly with a tropical storm or a hurricane. So there again, we have a hurricane warning remain in effect, no changes there. Current wind gusts anywhere from 66 in St. Pete, 62 in Venice. These are the current wind gusts. It was 74 just a few minutes ago in Venice with hurricane force gusts. Storm surge, there's the third facet, and the one that is the most destructive. I mean, 110 mile an hour winds are going to cause some problems. You're going to have trees down. I'll be very transparent with you. I had my family leave from my home in Palm Harbor, not because I was afraid of structural damage from the winds, but because there's a lot of trees around. And there's nothing you can do. When you get 10 inches of rain, and then all of a sudden you have a ton of wind coming as well, there's going to be some trees down. Tomorrow we will wake up and look around and there will be some trees down, maybe a lot of trees down across the area. There's going to be a lot of blue tarps on roofs coming up over the next several weeks, if not the next several months. So the wind is the biggest issue if you don't live on the water, and I don't live on the water. But if you do, it's the surge. Not only is it catastrophic, as we saw with Helene, but it's deadly, unfortunately, as we saw with Helene as well. So our hope is people who evacuated, everyone evacuated. We know they didn't, but we hope the majority of the people did evacuate. But a little good news in sense of the overall surge total. If you remember the last 3 or 4 days, the Hurricane Center was locked in with a 10 to 15 foot surge in the bay. Kind of heard us saying, especially on DPL, heard us saying, yeah, that's the worst case scenario. And you can't have a worst case scenario with a hurricane if it's going to make landfall here, up here, because there'll be offshore winds there. So it wasn't going to happen. The worst of the surge will be wherever landfall occurs and to the south. And because landfall is going to occur really close to northwestern Manatee in that general ballpark, the bay is on the fringe, really on the fringe of the worst surge. So the Hurricane Center actually dropped down their surge forecast a little while ago from 10 to 15 feet to 6 to 9. Similar numbers to Helene. Now Sarasota, 9 to 13. That includes Siesta Key. That includes areas down to the south. Fort Myers, 8 to 12. And they're already getting surge in the Fort Myers area. So winds of 120 miles an hour. The new numbers will come out shortly. You know, the pressure really hasn't moved much. We will see if there's any additional weakening, whether it's 115, 110. It's just kind of a categorization thing. If it stays 111 or above, then we know we had a major hurricane hit. And I suspect it probably will. But our biggest threat right now is that extreme wind warning now, in the next 2 hours, surge, then the next 4 to 6 hours, and power outages. And I'll say this one more time. I actually haven't said it yet today. Every hurricane season, we hear a tragic story about someone who uses a generator in their home and their family dies of carbon monoxide poisoning. It happened in Polk County with Irma. Family of 4 died. A lot of people bought generators seeing this storm was coming, and they've never had one before. You run to Home Depot, you get the box, you're like, yes, I got a generator. You bring it home, and you don't have a clue on how to use it. By the way, YouTube videos are really helpful. I'm going to be honest, I have a generator, and I couldn't figure out today why the heck wasn't it turning on. It was driving me crazy because I haven't used it in a little while. There was a little valve you had to turn on to let the gas go in, and I forgot to do it. So my point was, I went on YouTube video, I looked, generator, shows you. So if you have never used it and you just have it out of the box and you're waiting to turn it on, to get it cranking, if you lose power, it might not be a bad idea to check that out. And never, ever use that generator in your home, in your garage, or anywhere where the fumes can have direct access to the home. So again, new numbers will come out shortly. The track, I mean, that's about it. We've been saying for hours now, you throw the models out the window, you look out the window, it's now casting. You're watching every wobble, you're watching every wobble, we're watching every wobble. I'll be honest, Jason and Greg and I, we see a wobble and we're like, oh man, is that east or is that north? And that's what it is, because there's no data. You're just watching it. But in the next 2 to 3 hours, landfall will occur. And when it does, it's going to pack a serious punch with wind across areas from Pinellas, Hillsborough, Manatee, and Sarasota. You got something, Jason?
Oh, no, just looking at some of the new numbers coming in. 65-mile-per-hour gusts in St. Pete. These numbers, though, 77 miles per hour in Sarasota. These are the highest that we have now. And unfortunately, when you start to get to the eye of a hurricane, you start to lose a lot of the observation sites. So the hope is that we'll be able to still continue to relay those high gusts as we start to get them. But sometimes these strong 100-mile-per-hour winds could knock out our observation guides. I did see the National Weather Service is not going to add Sarasota County into the extreme wind warning because the strongest part of these winds, like we were talking about a second ago, are associated here on the northern side of the eye wall. So we're looking at also some surge values picking up. Naples is now seeing major flooding. So the surge is picking up south, and it's probably going to start picking up here along our coast, especially Manatee, Sarasota counties, maybe perhaps even in the southern bay as well. But yeah, right now we're seeing those winds really begin to crank up, with the strongest being at about 77 to 74. Venice is updated now to 74 miles per hour. Brooksville also 66 miles per hour. So even our northern spots are beginning to see these strong tropical storm force winds with gusts now approaching hurricane force. And looking at some of the current gusts, I think you did show this one, Dennis, but yeah, it did show earlier that we had some 70 mile per hour gusts. Looks like now we're all in the ballpark of very strong tropical storm force winds. And that extreme wind warning, like I'd mentioned a second ago, it looks like they are not going to extend it south into Sarasota County. So if there is any good news, it would be for those of you in Sarasota County right now, where it looks like this goes right to the Manatee-Sarasota County line, but they're not going, the National Weather Service is not going to extend it a little farther south. And we were just showing you this a second ago, but if you did miss it, let me turn off the warnings here on this map and show you what we're looking at as far as the potential for these winds, how strong the winds are inside this eye wall. So turning the warnings off, I'm going to switch it back over here to our velocity mode. So we're going to turn off the rain. We're going to look at what direction the raindrops are moving in the wind mode to see exactly what we're looking at as far as how strong these winds are. And we're looking at sustained winds a couple thousand feet up, so not what we would see here at the ground level, over 100 miles per hour, some as high as 124 to 125 miles per hour. So when you're looking at this and you're saying, well, why isn't Sarasota being included if the eye could potentially move on shore here? It's because, again, the northern eye wall is where we're seeing the strongest part of the winds, and with a northeasterly movement on shore here over the next 2 hours, that's going to take the northern eye wall into St. Pete, into potentially Tampa, and also through southern Hillsborough County into Bradenton, and also places east of there over toward Lakewood Ranch along 64 and 70. So that's what we're looking at right now. So that's the wind mode. There's clearly where the center of the eye is. Out ahead of it, these winds in these blue and purple shades are showing up at about 70 to 100 miles per hour. So we're still going to get some pretty strong winds, but the more concentrated and more likely areas that will continue to pile up these 100+ mile per hour wind gusts are going to be within this northern band. So let me stop the radar. We'll do a little query tool and look inside and see exactly where the strongest winds are. Where you see the orangish brown colors, those are starting to move into Egmont Channel and also here through Anna Maria Island and Fort DeSoto, getting basically into the mouth of Tampa Bay. So looking at some of these numbers here in these darker shades of brown, we're looking at 100 miles per hour. Again, this is about 1,000, 2,000 feet up, so take about 10 miles per hour off of that. We've got 90 mile per hour gusts here at the surface. We're looking at offshore gusts still at 105. We had 129 miles per hour showing up earlier. There's 113, and here is 107. So again, if you take that, that's at upper about 1,000, 2,000 feet. You put that down here at the surface, you're going to lower those numbers by about 10 miles per hour, and we're easily all still looking at 90 to 100, if not 100 plus mile per hour gusts within this band as it's moving onshore. And again, as far as the direction of movement with this, we're talking about it moving more to the east-northeast, which would affect, of course, where they put that extreme wind warning, which is Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Manatee County. So there's the band. Notice the northern side of this band now creeping into southern Pinellas County, and we're going to continue to see this shifting east-northeast. So basically along the I-4 corridor and to the south is where we're likely going to see this band pushing those winds over 100. One of my friends in Carrollwood already texted me up toward Lake Magdalene saying the winds are crazy out there already. They can't imagine what it's going to be like when the eye wall starts to move onshore and closer to them. So again, we're locked in with this northern eye wall, which is actually being a little more of a worse part of the storm than what the actual landfall location will be. And based on the last couple of trends, it looks like it's made a little bit of a wobble right. We don't want to put too much stock into it, but if this trend continues, the landfall, the center, could be here in Sarasota County, but the strongest winds associated with it may not be directly around that eye wall. It's in the northern part, and that's why the National Weather Service issued that high wind warning or extreme wind warning here for Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Manatee County. So again, we're watching this very closely for you as far as this goes until 9:30 tonight. We could see it extended inland. Of course, the storm will begin to weaken quite a bit once it gets out of the Gulf of Mexico, but heads up for you in Lakeland, heads up for you in Hardee counties, because you all could see an extension of this to the east as we see this northern eye wall continue to move to the east over the next couple of hours. Anything else? Oh, okay. So yeah, we're continuing to watch that for you here as it shifts off to the east. The good news, though, I haven't seen any spin with this as far as any tornado risks go. It's one thing to worry about 100 mile per hour winds. It's another thing when you have to throw in a mix of those stronger winds. So yeah, we're going to continue to watch this for you. Also watching where that rain sets up the heaviest. We've seen anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rain already. Got another 6 to 8 inches to go before we see this winding down. A bullseye showing up here for Citrus and Hernando County. So while you all are well removed from the eye, moving into Sarasota and Manatee counties in southern Pinellas and Hillsborough, the extreme rain rates are going to be here from I-4 north. So strongest winds along and south of I-4, extreme rain rates north of I-4 along and north. And this is where we could see some totals exceeding a foot, maybe even getting up to around 1.5 feet of rainfall. So that's where we're at right now with this. We're going to really have to pay attention closely to this extreme wind warning to see if we start getting some of these observations coming in over the next couple of hours. Greg, have you seen anything?
I haven't. We were just talking with Dennis. He does not remember a time that we were going to.
Correct. So I did talk to my National Weather Service friend, and this would be the first time Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Manatee counties have been put under an extreme wind warning. They started this, about 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. So it's not something that's been around for hundreds of years. But yeah, it's the first time that we have seen this here in Pinellas, Manatee, and Hillsborough County. Sarasota County, your first time being in one was when Hurricane Ian rolled through, and you guys were in the northern eye wall at that point. So a very similar situation here with the northern eye wall being obviously north of the eye of the center, and we're seeing the worst of the winds and the extreme winds here potentially versus it being around the actual eye itself. So let me turn the flash flood warnings off. We are going to continue to watch this for you as we go over the next hour to hour and a half. Again, this is basically being treated as a tornado warning. What we do during tornado warnings, if they are threatening a major metro area, is we would cover it until the threat passes. And that's what we're going to have to do right here, because again, you may not see another extreme wind warning for another decade, 2 decades. Let's hopefully we don't have another one for another 100 years, right? But this is very, very serious, and this is where the power outages are going to start to come into play. So make sure, like Dennis said, you've got your cell phone charged, you've got our ABC Action News app downloaded to your phone, because that will continue to allow you to see our coverage should you lose power, and of course you're unable to watch us on TV anymore. But this is the bad part. This is the part that we were hoping would nudge south, nudge north, just something to get it out of our beautiful Tampa Bay area. And unfortunately, it's coming right into Tampa Bay. This will definitely go down as one of the strongest hurricanes on record for our area, and clearly the strongest we've had in about 103, 104 years since the 1921 Tarpon Springs hurricane. So there's a warning again. I do want to remove that warning because I really want to focus in here now on some of these bands coming on shore. Clearly, you can see the eye. And the outer eye wall, there were 2 eye walls if you were with us earlier today. Those have already moved into Manatee and Sarasota counties. That's why we're seeing more gusts showing up at 70 miles per hour plus 80 miles per hour, getting closer and closer to that. MacDill Air Force Base, we just gusted to 60 miles per hour. Brooksville, 66. Even in Winter Haven, far east of the center, we have a wind gust of 58 miles per hour. We're at 60 down toward Fort Myers. St. Pete, another gust to 66. And we're looking at, let's see, Venice gusting to 62 within the last hour or so. So again, extreme strong winds coming in, but the strongest are going to be right around the core of the eye. So in Sarasota County, you may be the landfall point when you're looking at the center. Again, the center of the eye where it comes on shore is the landfall point. This could be Siesta Key, it could be Turtle Beach, Osprey, maybe Venice, or it could be as far north as Lido Key, maybe even the southern part of Longboat Key, depending on how much to the north and east. And yes, there are extreme winds in this as well, but where the strongest winds are within this band here. So let's focus in now on Tampa and St. Pete. Look at the red colors over top of us, guys. This is 4 to 6 inch rainfall rates per hour. On top of the fact that we have the chance for 100 plus mile per hour winds to move in within this band. Notice it's not moving at all. This is a stationary band as the eye is beginning to move closer and closer on shore. So we are literally covered up from north to south in Pinellas County, whether you are in Palm Harbor, whether you're in Tarpon Springs, down through Dunedin, Clearwater Beach, Indian Rocks Beach, Bel Air Shores, down to Madeira Beach and Treasure Island, Johns Pass, south to Paso Grill. We are covered up right now in the worst of the storm, and the winds are just beginning to pick back up. We are looking at Tampa being basically in the same thing. We are not in the strongest part of the northern eye wall just yet here in the city of Tampa, but our extreme rainfall rates continue here as well. New flash flood warnings have been issued. Again, when we talk about how much we've seen so far, 6 to 8 inches of rainfall is where we're at this point. Widening out the picture, Lakeland, you guys are back into the heavier rain, and again, I want you to be prepared for those of you in Polk County, because that extreme wind warning may be extended farther east within the next hour to hour and a half as this comes on shore, because you will be in the northern eye wall here as well, especially south of I-4. So places like Bartow, Medulla, down toward Fort Meade. This is where along 17 we're going to likely potentially see this warning extended a bit farther east. In Manatee County, you are no longer now in the eye wall. It's shifted north. But look to your west. This part of the eye wall, the northwestern part of the eye wall, is ever so slowly creeping closer and closer to Anna Maria and Longboat. This is going to be the worst part of the eye wall for you all as well. Again, in the northwestern eye wall, this is where we're looking at the strongest winds at this point, and they're picking up to around 100 plus miles per hour. So ladies, this is what we've got right now. Extreme wind warning until 9:30. Dennis is here. We're going to take a quick break, send it over to you guys. And what's the very latest that you have as far as power outages go? Because I know they've got to be starting to creep up now.
Yeah, Jason, Wendy and I have been looking at FPL, Duke, and TECO, and I do want to start with TECO seeing nearly 45,000 power outages at this point. FPL still hovering around that 8,000 in Manatee County.
Right, and Duke Energy now at 51,000, most in Pinellas County. So obviously there's a big issue there, and it's only going to get worse, as we know, because the winds are going to pick up. More power outages will be across the Bay Area. And almost immediately after we heard our phones ring for that alarm, for that extreme wind warning, we started getting notifications from several counties that first responders are now being pulled from the road for their own safety, including Sarasota, Clearwater Police and Fire, Pinellas County, the city of St. Pete, and Pasco County. They say they just can no longer respond west of the Suncoast Parkway for their own safety. And here's an important reminder. We want you to be able to reach us 24/7 during and after Hurricane Milton. Just scan that QR code on your screen to download our apps. And this way you can stay connected to us even if you lose your power or signal, and watch us on your phone. And please, charge your phone right now before you lose your power.
Truly, if you're one of the lucky ones who still has power at this point.
Yes.
So to download our apps, take out your cell phone and go to your app store, search ABC Action News, click on the download. And once you're in the ABC Action News app, you'll see our live feed at the top of the homepage. It's exactly what we're showing right now, so you can still watch us there on your phone. Now, Pinellas County within the last 15 minutes put out a shelter-in-place warning, and our team coverage of Hurricane Milton continues now in Pinellas County.
Yeah, that's right. Our ABC Action News reporter Eric Waxler is in downtown St. Pete with the very latest out there. Eric, wow, the wind I can see is picking up because your camera can't even keep you in focus. There you are. You okay out there?
Hey there. Yeah, we're doing fine. The rain covering on the camera sometimes is going to definitely blow up as the wind blows up around us. So we are here just off of Central Avenue in downtown St. Petersburg. The weather has obviously deteriorated over the last couple hours. We are seeing the strongest gusts so far. You can see it. We are under some cover here at the True by Hilton Hotel. Let's take a quick look inside here. Let's see. You can see it. There are people that have been in here most of the day, making friends. You have family gathering together, eating, playing pool, playing chess, doing the best they can to make the best of a terrible situation. But better for them to be inside than out here, because as we continue to look, this is not a time you want to be outside. You can, as we look there on 17th Street, just look at the wind taking those trees. Already one tree went down. Thankfully, we are not seeing people drive around anymore, because for the last couple hours there were still people out on the street. You can really feel these wind gusts going right now. Within the last few minutes, the city of St. Petersburg, as expected, shut down water to many parts of the city because they said the sewer system obviously overrun with the stormwater surge and the threat of that, so they have shut that down. So it might not be a good idea to try and use the toilet at this point. Your plumbing might not work, but it is expected. And depending on how things go tonight, it could be more than 24 hours before it is put back on. So that is something that could be one of the many inconveniences to come. And you see these are a couple apartment buildings here on Central Avenue. We've seen people actually watching ABC Action News, because when we go live, we can hear them screaming at us, saying hello, as everybody just waits to see what this storm will do to St. Petersburg, an area that was ravaged, like so many others, by the storm surge for Hurricane Helene. And now, if the storm surge is even more than Helene, you just don't even want to think about the possibilities. People already lost everything. And we've been keeping track of Jack Skellington, the Halloween decoration from the Nightmare Before Christmas. He is still flying up there. So we keep saying that as long as he's still up there, maybe we're okay. But everyone here just waiting the best they can to get through this storm. But we are definitely seeing the effects here as the eye wall gets closer just south of us in that Bradenton area. But we're definitely feeling it here in downtown St. Pete. Live in downtown St. Pete, Eric Waxler, ABC Action News.
Eric, thank you. He just said waiting game, and I feel like that's what we've all been dealing with the past really few days. Honestly.
Yeah, 100%, and really, especially the last 24 hours. Yes. It's like, and there's no relief that we're seeing the eye get closer and closer either. It is the waiting game, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, and we do want to go now to our ABC Action News anchor, Paul Lagrone. He's in the Bradenton area.
That's right. So, Paul, have the winds picked up since the last time we saw you?
Yeah, absolutely. They're picking up pretty strong here. I haven't measured it, but it's definitely 70 plus. And we actually saw some sparks. I believe the power lines were sparking over in this direction. The clouds are moving really fast above us right now, and the trees are taking a beating. The power lines are really starting to wave, and we saw some sparks coming from a couple of homes down there, and the power is flickering on and off. I want to take you across the street, all right? Because I want to check in with our good folks, Gigi and Carl. They're the best from Boston. Love that town. They're here in Bradenton, where we are right now, in the area called Palma Vista. A few miles north of IMG Academy, a few miles south of the Manatee River. I'm going to ring their doorbell. They know I'm coming. We cleared it with them earlier, so I'm not just showing up unannounced. I wouldn't do that to anyone. But we wanted to check in with them. They got their family in Boston calling, asking how they're doing, as we do have a bit of a lull in the wind right now. All right, Gigi, Carl, how are you?
Worried about the door blowing.
That's all right. How you guys doing? How you holding up?
Holding up. Actually, the power's been off and on, so we've been lucky to keep it on. How about you over there?
We're doing good. You can tell the wind's starting to pick up.
All right. Yeah, no, it's definitely picked up, and we're going to hunker down at this point. I mean, we were worried about the wind all along. It's just waiting for it to come. The waiting game is the thing.
The waiting.
How's the family in Boston doing?
We're on the phone right now with our kids in Boston, and they're listening to us right now and keeping in touch and hoping for the best for us.
Okay. Well, the house looks good so far. I see you sandbagged the garage and everything.
Yeah.
Windows doing okay?
Yeah, so
We
far.
are right now. Everything's looking solid. So I mean, we're just
It's
hoping it
coming
moves
soon.
faster.
There you go. Hey, go Bruins! Although I'm a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, so I can't really say that.
Lightning too.
The Lightning's my
That's our
second team. My second team.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll check in with you a little bit. Y'all take care. Have a good one. All right. So that's Carl and Gigi across the street from where we are set up in our live house here to broadcast you these images as we eyewitness this storm together in real time. The coverage there went a limb. So yeah, the road becomes kind of a wind alley here. And no doubt earlier, this is really interesting. We had drenching rain. Now it's the wind. So this storm is changing before our eyes. Virtually no rain right now. It's all wind. I think I've got Dennis. Dennis, if you're there, I was told you wanted to ask me a couple of questions. Fire away, my friend.
Hey, Paul, it's Jason. Dennis is getting himself ready, but we are looking at that. You're in Bradenton. We've got that western eye wall now beginning to move closer, that northwestern part of the eye wall heading your way. So just a heads up for you, this is where we're likely going to start to see those gusts that could be well over 75 miles per hour. Any kind of an estimate on the winds right now as far as what you think they may have been happening so far? You did say you had some power interruptions, at least some sparks flying, so I know they've got to be picking up.
Yeah, the sparks were flying over in this direction. Our own power has flickered on and off. It's held strong, though, I will say so far. And the sound of the wind, I don't know if you guys can hear that, and this is a strong gust we're getting here, and it's switching directions on me. So now it's still coming from the southeast. Okay, all right. Sparking there, right behind me. That's power lines. And we've got power lines behind the house. So we want those to hold strong too. But
yeah,
their power just went out. Gigi and
it's about time for you to get out of there,
Carl,
Paul.
their power just went out.
Yeah, Paul, if you have sparking power lines, it's probably time for you to get to safety.
All right, well, we'll keep checking in with you guys. And yeah, this is definitely a wind event. You see that? Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see it out there.
Those power lines right behind the house where Carl and Gigi are, and I believe they did lose power. And that's the concern. I mean, you still, Florida, I don't want to say for the most part, but you know that there are certain areas where you have above ground power lines. That's just the way it is in a lot of older neighborhoods. And so, and of course, the morning after the storm, you have to be careful with where you're walking. But I think what's interesting to me, just witnessing this in real time out here, and kind of giving you guys a play-by-play as we stand out in this, is that, literally 30 minutes ago, I couldn't see because it was raining so hard. And now it's the wind and the power of the wind and what the wind is doing to the environment around us, from the power lines to debris coming off the roof and the trees and the limbs coming off. That is how we're experiencing this storm right now. I want to get a sense for the power outages, because I know that that's happening as we speak as well. But this is howling wind, and definitely having an impact right now. And it's when you really want to keep a 360 view of what's coming at you. The house here is kind of a shield, a barrier, because at least it blocks whatever's coming this way. But this wind is now whipping around, and it almost changes directions on you real quick if you don't pay attention.
Hey, Paul, it's Dennis. So a quick question for you. So, I mean, the last 2 years, you've been in major hurricanes. You were in Perry. We have another extreme wind warning that just came out. How does what you're experiencing right now, and by the way, you're about 30 miles away from the eye, so the eye probably will pass directly over you. So yet again, it happened with you in Perry. It's going to happen with you here in Bradenton. Overall, the winds that we expect in your area, probably 100 to 115. But right now, how does it compare to what it was like in Perry?
Perry, I would say, Dennis, was stronger in terms of the gust from what I remember at the height of that storm. But we have more elements around us because of the situation that we're at. I mean, as you know, you've covered storms too. I mean, it's literally like, okay, what is your situation? Our situation is a house, it's a neighborhood, it's trees, it's in the neighborhood setting. The situation in Perry was a hotel, it was almost like a shelter. We were out in it, and it was a wide open landscape. There were trees in the distance. Here, it's dense in the sense that there are different things around us. There's a fence, there are trees, there are signs, there's a lot of stuff that can go flying around. At this moment right now, the winds are not quite as strong as it was in Perry. That was a Cat 4, though, as I recall.
It was. I think you had about 130.
Cat 3?
Yeah.